a person capable of captivating the hearts of 1.3 billion girls simultaneously had never been seen before. Astonishingly, this person was a woman. Countless men envied her. Yet, she cried to the heavens every day, begging to be transported to another world. Her wish was granted. She transmigrated into a novel, a story centered around a female protagonist navigating a harem. She became the protagonist's best friend, Eileen. Eileen's dull brown hair, unremarkable features, and ordinary demeanor rendered her a mere backdrop, serving only to accentuate the protagonist's brilliance. Strangely, the beautiful and wealthy protagonist, Claudia, took an immediate liking to the inconspicuous Eileen. Not only did she help Eileen pay off all her family debts, but she also made an exception, bringing Eileen to an exclusive high society gathering. Eileen looked expectantly at the adorably naive Claudia. "It's time for you to choose your fiancé." The girl stared back at her best friend, bewildered. Why would I choose a fiancé? Her large, watery eyes flickered with unspoken words. "Don't you know? I like Eileen." Eileen was stunned. She leaned in close to Claudia's ear. "Listen to me. If you choose the crown prince, you'll become the esteemed empress." Claudia glanced at the imposing crown prince in the distance and curled her lip. "I'm not interested." Eileen was taken aback, her jaw nearly hitting the floor. Recovering, she continued, "Or choosing the duke would be excellent too. The duke has influence everywhere. As the duchess, your wealth and power would be comparable to the crown princess." Claudia sighed dramatically. "I don't like criminals," she said coldly. Eileen, sweating profusely, thought this protagonist is nothing like the one in the novel. Like a persistent mother, she continued her matchmaking attempts. "How about the hero of the empire, the Holy Knight? I hear that after the reforms, Holy Knights are allowed to marry." Claudia replied earnestly, "Holy Knights vow to dedicate their lives to God. Breaking that vow to marry would be a grave disrespect to the divine." Clenching her fists, Eileen suppressed her frustration. "How can your thinking be so antiquated? Just choose someone and get married." Just then, Claudia suddenly announced in front of all the nobles, "Actually, I only want to spend my life with Eileen." In the distance, Claudia's brother muttered, "Does my sister intend to steal my wife?" The three prospective suitors looked as if they'd been struck by lightning. The expressions on their faces shifted from anticipation to utter disbelief. Eileen, meanwhile, was frozen in terror, her expression mirroring Munch's the scream. "I've seduced the protagonist," she thought desperately. "Will these three men tear me apart? What could have possibly led this girl to reject the crown prince? The Duke and the Holy Knight, three exceptional men, only to declare her desire to be with her best friend? Little did Claudia know, her declaration had placed Eileen's life in grave danger. The crown prince glared menacingly at the giggling girl. "Claudia," he seethed, "you said you want to spend your life with that thing?" Intimidated by the crown prince's aura, Eileen hid behind Claudia. Claudia raised her hand, her face darkening as she faced the crown prince. Undeterred, he advanced towards them with a deathly stride. He extended a hand, his voice low and dangerous. "I hope I misheard you. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to kill your fragile little fiancé." His hand reached for Eileen's face. Claudia slapped his hand away with surprising force. "Crown Prince, do not touch her." A fierce determination hardened her delicate, pale features. "Even if you're the Crown Prince, I will not allow you to bully Eileen." Suddenly, a chilling voice cut through the tense atmosphere. "Your taste in women is certainly unexpected." The Duke appeared, a disturbing smile twisting his lips. "Isn't she the woman whose incompetent father used her as collateral, almost making her my slave? How very interesting." Eileen trembled, wishing she could shrink into the floorboards and disappear. But Claudia remained fearless, protective as a mother hen. "Duke," she cried, "are you threatening Eileen?" Just as the Duke's attention wavered, a chilling presence made Eileen whirl around in fear. The Holy Knight stood there, his voice soft, his words terrifying. "You know, divine power can also be used to kill." Eileen broke down, sobbing and clutching her hair. Unable to bear her distress, Claudia pulled her close. "Don't worry, Eileen," she whispered. "I'll protect you." Just then, a man's hand rested on Eileen's shoulder. "All right, everyone, settle down," he said gently. He then drew both his younger sister, Claudia, and Eileen closer, holding them within the circle of his arms. "I don't understand why you all claim Claudia as your own. In reality, she doesn't belong to anyone. I hope you can respect my sister's feelings." Hearing her brother's dependable words, Claudia finally relaxed, murmuring, "See, only my brother and Eileen respect my feelings." He then furrowed his brow, scowling at the three men before him. "The three of you? I don't like any of you. Does love truly consist of just saying I like you? Not only are you incredibly chauvinistic, but you're also aggressive and completely disregard my feelings. You're acting like barbarians." As he spoke, Claudia, her anger boiling over, suddenly threw her arms around Eileen and shouted, "Whether it's now or in the future, I belong only to Eileen." This was probably the kind of best friend 1.3 billion girls dreamed of. This girl, on the very first day she met Eileen, had magnanimously cleared all of Eileen's debts. She had also used her own delicate frame to shield Eileen from thugs, vowing to protect her. Now, Claudia pulled Eileen away, not forgetting to throw down a parting threat. "If you dare bully her, you'll have to step over my dead body." But back in a large room with only the two of them, Claudia showed a rare vulnerability. She sobbed, saying, "The crown prince, the duke, the holy knight, none of them love me as much as you do. They just think whoever possesses me wins. I wish they would all just leave me alone." Claudia clenched her fists. "I'd rather die than like any of them." Eileen was incredulous. Marrying any one of them would guarantee a life of comfort and luxury. She asked hesitantly, "Do you really hate them that much?" Claudia lifted her tear-stained face, her expression a clear answer. It was as if she was saying, "How dare you reject the love I offer you?" In that moment, Eileen had a sudden realization. She always claimed to be acting in Claudia's best interest, urging her to choose one of the three to marry, but she had deliberately ignored how tyrannical those three men were. Eileen lowered her head and apologized. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kept pressuring you to choose." Claudia offered a forgiving smile. "I know you wouldn't do that without a reason. You must have your difficulties. But if you really feel bad, then let me hug you." Eileen readily agreed to this small request. The next second, Claudia lunged forward, embracing Eileen tightly. A blissful smile spread across her face. Then, she declared loudly in Eileen's ear, "I really like you." But in the next instant, panic flooded Claudia's features. She quickly released Eileen's shoulders. Did I do something you hate again? I told everyone I like you, that I only want to spend my life with you, without your permission." Claudia anxiously watched Eileen's expression, terrified that she would leave in anger. But Eileen simply smiled and forgave her. "It's okay. In that situation, you didn't have any other choice." Looking at Eileen's warm smile, Claudia's heart pounded in her chest. She spoke softly, "Eileen, will you be my friend forever?" A gentle breeze ruffled Eileen's hair. She smiled and readily agreed. "Of course I will." However, the next moment, Eileen inwardly wept. Stuck between three powerful men vying for Claudia, it seems my death is inevitable. Do you have a girl like this in your life? She thrives among other women, but becomes stiff and speechless in the presence of men. This girl's name is Eileen. Right now, she's frozen stiff like a Lego figure, startled by the sudden appearance of her best friend's brother. "Oh my God, he's so handsome." But Claudia's brother mistook Eileen's expressionless face for anger. He cautiously asked, "Did I do something wrong? You can tell me." Eileen stiffly replied, "No, not at all. I would never be upset with a handsome man." The man chuckled at Eileen's honesty. "Is that so? Then I must thank my parents for giving me these good looks." Eileen breathed a sigh of relief, thinking to herself how soothing both siblings' appearances were. Just then, Eileen suddenly asked, "By the way, it's been a while. Is there something you need?" The handsome man hesitated for a moment before answering. "Did you hire new servants? It seems your maid has been bribed." Looking at the man's narrow eyes, partially obscured by his glasses, Eileen was taken aback. "What do you mean?" The man stopped beating around the bush. He spread his hands. "Do you know you've ingested a lethal dose of poison? You're about to die." Eileen's jaw dropped. Her heart pounded. What's he talking about? "I'm going to die." A second later, Eileen found her voice. "How long do I have?" she asked. Upon receiving the answer of half a day, Eileen felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She knew who was behind the poisoning. It had to be those three men. They must have been filled with hatred after she'd stolen Claudia away from them. The man, watching Eileen's anxious expression, offered a gentle smile. I bought you that half a day. Without me, you wouldn't even be standing here talking to me. Oh, and I've already taken care of the other assassins sent after you. Don't worry. Eileen stared at the man's warm smile, her heart skipping several beats. But a moment later, she wiped the drool from her chin. Wait a minute. The important thing right now is that I'm about to die. Watching the girl anxiously twisting her hair, the man's smile widened. He stroked the small cat in his lap. That's why you shouldn't be so far away from me. Come closer. I need to touch you to administer the antidote. Eileen, tears and snot streaming down her face, felt a surge of indignation. You could cure me? Why didn't you say so earlier? Why scare me like that? Nevertheless, she weakly approached him, her voice thick with forced gratitude. Well, thank you then. Observing the distance still separating them, the man chuckled. Eileen, that's still too far. I need to actually touch you for the antidote to work. The girl reluctantly placed her hand in his. He gave a wry smile. Claudia has said, I always look down on people like a flagpole. Apparently, it's quite off-putting. The Earl's daughter had been poisoned by her maid and had only 12 hours left to live. As she paced frantically, a pale hand grasped hers, channeling healing magic into Eileen's body. She sighed in relief. She was going to live. But in the next instant, Eileen's heart raced and her breath hitched. She had made physical contact with the man. She stared blankly at her savior. His voice, soft and gentle, washed over her. You're so unguarded. It worries me. A flicker of something dark crossed his refined, pale features. His gaze, unwavering, held hers. You're so cute. Eileen, unaccustomed to compliments from men, felt her mind go blank. He seized the opportunity, extending his hand towards her. Would you come home with me? The answer, of course, was yes, but not for the reasons one might assume. The man's name was Felix, and he was, in fact, Eileen's best friend's older brother. Arriving at Felix's home, she was greeted by Claudia, her beloved best friend, whom she hadn't seen in what felt like an eternity. Their reunion was as boisterous as always. After carefully examining Eileen, Claudia fumed. I heard what happened. I can't believe those scoundrels acted so quickly. A chilling glint entered her normally innocent eyes. How dare they hurt you? I want to break every bone in their bodies. I should have dealt with those lunatics sooner. Eileen, unnerved by Claudia's sudden ferocity, felt a shiver run down her spine. Felix, noticing Eileen's discomfort, casually draped an arm around her shoulders, interrupting his sister. Eileen almost died, Claudia. Shouldn't you comfort her first? Claudia blinked, as if just realizing her oversight. Right, I was so angry. Eileen, you must have been terrified. Eileen gently took her friend's hand, offering reassurance in return. I expected something like this. After becoming the target of so many suitors, I knew it was only a matter of time. I just didn't expect them to act so quickly. A flicker of distress crossed Claudia's pale face. Don't say that. It's not your fault. Eileen feigned indifference. Of course, it's not my fault. It's theirs. I'm happy now. I don't need to waste my emotions on people who don't deserve them. Perhaps it was Eileen's resilience and optimism that made Claudia, who had always been somewhat aloof, willing to do anything for her. Claudia took Eileen's hand, pulling her along excitedly. Come with me. I have something to show you. Eileen shook her head, already guessing what it was. Her wealthy best friend loved buying dresses and shoes. But a moment later, Eileen's jaw dropped at the spectacular sight before her. How could a carousel from an amusement park possibly fit inside a bedroom? Eileen stared in disbelief at the extravagant display. Her best friend waved a dismissive hand. These are just a few small gifts I got you. Looking at the champagne, the elaborate pastries, and the chocolate fountain, Eileen thought, so this is what it feels like to be spoiled. She remained speechless for a long moment. Claudia, her best friend, suddenly asked, a tremor of anxiety in her voice. You don't like it? Is something missing? Eileen sighed, exasperated. It's not that something's missing. It's that you've given me too much already. But Claudia mistook her meaning, immediately adding in a rush. Too much? It's all right. I've also prepared a separate dressing room, just for you. Why don't we go and see it? Eileen was about to try and dissuade her from spending any more money when she heard Felix, Claudia's brother, speak up in a serious tone. Wouldn't it be better to build a small river in this room, connected to an artificial waterfall, and maybe add a boat? Eileen stared, incredulous. The man, usually so composed, had just made the most outlandish suggestion, and it was for her benefit. Eileen immediately shook her head in refusal. However, Claudia pretended not to notice and mused thoughtfully. An artificial river would be beautiful, but would be quite troublesome to build. I think building a track for a small train might be better. Felix nodded seriously. Time is of the essence, but I'll go by a magically controlled carriage right now. Seeing the siblings so earnestly, yet extravagantly, preparing for her arrival, Eileen's face remained impassive. Eileen, speechless, stretched out her hand in a hurried attempt to stop them. Wait a minute, I'm really not unhappy. Seeing Eileen's forced smile of contentment, Claudia shook her head, overwhelmed with self-reproach. Eileen, I don't really understand you at all. You've always listened to me, been there for me, but you never talk about your own feelings. As she spoke, Claudia's eyes welled up. I really want to know, what do you like? Hearing those words, the last thread of Eileen's rational restraint snapped. If this otherworldly being was asking, she wouldn't hesitate any longer. With the utmost conviction, she roared out the deepest desires of her heart. What I love most in this life is money. Besides money, I also love good food. I have 2 stomachs, one for meals and one for snacks. I love looking at beautiful people. Just seeing a beautiful person makes me happy. I could stare at a beautiful person for a whole year. I also love to have fun, to hang out with friends. I love plushies. Sleeping while cuddling a soft plushie is so comfortable. And my childhood dream was to be a very rich, unemployed vagabond. After Eileen, with a do-or-die expression, confessed her true feelings, she figuratively collapsed on the ground, thinking, I'm finished. I'm so vulgar. She definitely won't want to be friends with me anymore. However, to her surprise, Claudia breathed a sigh of relief and said gently, then you don't have to worry about anything. Just come and live with me. Eileen looked up incredulous. Even if I become a good-for-nothing freeloader, it's okay. Accidentally transmigrated into the body of a side character destined for misfortune. She had thought she would become a thorn in the protagonist's side, but unexpectedly, the protagonist had fallen for her. And because of her, Claudia had rejected the proposals of 3 suitors. Eileen heard Claudia's soft, tempting voice. Come and live with me forever. That way, you can fulfill your dream of being a rich, unemployed vagabond. And I'm a rich beauty. Perfectly matching your ideal type, right? Looking at her kind and beautiful best friend, Eileen was so moved that tears and snot streamed down her face. She then threw herself into Claudia's arms. Felix, Claudia's brother, watched them, a smile playing on his lips. Cute things are inherently valuable. Looks like this manga is monogamous. I support Eileen getting both siblings. Having packed her bags, Eileen moved into Claudia's house without delay. She even made a symbolic phone call to her family. I plan to live here forever. Her younger brother on the other end of the line scolded his freeloading older sister. You're a grown woman. How can you just leave home without a word? Eileen replied defiantly. I'm not running away from home. I'm renouncing worldly attachments. And it's all because I'm too cute that they want to take me in. Her brother on the other end was speechless. What is this shameless sister even saying? He sighed in exasperation. I've always thought you were a bit off, but now you're getting even weirder. Speaking of which, Eileen's anger flared. She said furiously, the abnormal one is our father. To pay off his debts, he actually tried to sell his family. If Claudia hadn't paid off his debts, he probably would have already sold me off as a wife to some old man. Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the hallway. Felix, with a smile on his face, looked at Eileen as if admiring a cute pet. Eileen nodded at him and then said to her brother, you should move here after you graduate. Felix added, he's always welcome, someone with your talent. With that, the siblings hung up the phone. As soon as she saw the handsome man, Eileen's body stiffened involuntarily. She blurted out awkwardly, trying to make conversation, "You not asleep yet?" Felix, while talking about her brother, moved closer to Eileen. The girl became even more rigid. Whenever she got nervous, her mouth would form into a hamster-like triangle. Felix chuckled, amused. "Don't be nervous. I just wanted to ask why you suggested I increase my magic resistance earlier." "What about resistance, Eileen?" Eileen couldn't risk revealing her knowledge of the future. She gave a non-committal laugh. "You might not believe this, but about a year ago, I saw something like a prophecy. I saw the Crown Prince, the Duke, and the Holy Knight. After exhausting every method to win Claudia's affections and failing, they decided to join forces and completely isolate her. So, they used an ancient relic capable of destroying the world. According to the original story, Felix would either let the world be destroyed or sacrifice himself. Later, he chose to absorb all the demonic power into his own body. This caused him to be completely consumed consumed by the demons, and he ended up killing almost his entire family. After dealing with Felix, who no longer held any value to them, the three heroes then pretended to be saviors and left. Claudia, kind Eileen, decided to prevent this tragedy. So, as soon as she transmigrated, she discreetly warned Felix. She asked him to secretly increase his magic resistance and not tell anyone. Looking at the timid gaze of the girl before him, Felix, for some unknown reason, readily agreed to the somewhat impolite request. He even thanked Eileen. "Thank you for pointing out my shortcomings. Learning is a process of constant self-improvement, isn't it? What's it like to be simultaneously adored by a pair of Yandra's siblings?" During the day, the girl was busy being affectionate with the younger sister. At night, she was pulled aside by the older brother for heart-to-heart talks. Before going to bed, Eileen and Felix walked to the study. Suddenly, he took Eileen's hand and placed a reverent kiss upon it. A flicker of possessive madness flashed across his face, which usually wore a gentle smile. "Don't look at me with those eyes. I'm afraid I won't be able to control my desires." Eileen, somewhat bewildered, asked innocently, "So your desire is to hurt me?" Felix's eyes held a touch of madness as he seemed to recall something. "Something like that," he admitted softly. He quickly masked his true thoughts and resumed his usual gentlemanly demeanor. This time, however, it was Eileen who held his hand tightly. "Do you think I'll let you go? I'll find a way for all three of us to be happy. So don't leave." While Felix was stunned, Eileen leaned in close. "You just said something like that, which means you do have a desire to bully me, right?" As Felix looked on in confusion, Eileen forced herself to remain calm, straightening her trembling body. "Then stop suppressing your desires. As long as you release them all before the demonic relic appears, you won't turn into a demon, right?" Unexpectedly, Felix rejected Eileen's suggestion. Instead, he looked at her incredulously. "Why? I don't mind." Just then, the usually gentle and refined Felix displayed a dark, serious expression. "Eileen, don't provoke me. I'll get angry." In the next second, he immediately concealed his true feelings with a harmonious smile. "But I'll try my best." Eileen didn't understand what he meant by "try my best." Felix, unable to explain the details, let out a laugh, hoping to gloss over it. However, Eileen wasn't fooled. With a look of concern, she said, "How many times do I have to tell you? You'll get sick if you keep bottling it up." Suddenly, Felix's large hand cupped Eileen's face. He pulled her down onto his lap and said softly, "Don't worry about anything. Just rest." Confusion clouded Eileen's face. "He told me to rest, but why are his thighs so hard, even though he's a mage? Does he work out every night?" Eileen spoke hesitantly. Felix, thank you for your kindness, but my head hurts like this. It's not only a little high, but also very hard." Hearing Eileen's complaint, Felix didn't release her. Instead, he reached out and gently patted her back. Unable to resist the drowsiness, Eileen drifted off to sleep. In that moment of fading consciousness, she suddenly realized something. Although Felix was always very caring and considerate towards her, thinking back, whenever they had a disagreement, things always seemed to go his way in the end. Therefore, Eileen couldn't tell if he was truly gentle and kind, or if he wore a gentle mask, concealing a manipulative nature. Claudia, upon discovering her best friend and brother together, burst into tears. "How could you do that while I was asleep?" she cried. It was the first time Eileen had seen her cry, and she immediately hugged her tightly. "Claudia, why are you crying?" the girl said with a pout. "I want you to sleep on my lap too." Eileen readily agreed. "As long as you're willing, I'm available anytime. Besides, Felix's lap isn't very comfortable as a pillow." Unexpectedly, Felix, who was nearby, overheard this. He feigned hurt, saying, "Uncomfortable? I'm so heartbroken. You seem to be sleeping so soundly." As Eileen frantically tried to soothe the two jealous siblings, Claudia blew the horn, initiating the battle for Eileen's attention. "Brother, shouldn't you be at work?" Felix adjusted his glasses and replied, "It's barely dawn. It's still early for work. Shouldn't you be in class?" Claudia, refusing to back down, pressed her advantage. "I only have afternoon classes today. You, as the vice minister, should go to work early." Unfazed, Felix played his trump card with an air of nonchalance. Even if the vice minister is late, no one would dare say anything. "However, you skipped class yesterday. If you don't attend class seriously, Eileen might be very disappointed in you." Claudia immediately faltered. A flicker of panic crossed her face. She quickly grasped Eileen's hand and said, "Eileen, You know I'm not the type to skip class, right? Tears welled in Claudia's eyes as she promised. I'll study hard. Please don't hate me. Eileen quickly comforted the distressed Claudia. I'll never hate you. I'll never be disappointed in you. As the two held hands, gazing affectionately at each other and murmuring each other's names, a sudden cough interrupted the tender scene. A tall man stood there, impatiently clearing his throat. Claudia, looking guilty, greeted him. "Father, when did you get here?" The Count replied coldly. "I was here long before you came in." Claudia then looked at her father with a hint of annoyance. "Really? I didn't even notice. Why didn't you say anything?" The Count sighed. "Your brother said the same thing to me. He was afraid of waking someone up, so he told me to be quiet." Honestly, the Count placed a hand on his forehead and sighed again in exasperation. He gestured towards Eileen. "My son-in-law, no, daughter-in-law, Miss Amber," he began, and Eileen asked, puzzled, "What is it, Count?" The Count, looking down at Eileen, uttered coldly, "Please come speak with me privately." Eileen instantly felt a sense of foreboding. A cold sweat broke out. "It's coming," she thought. "He's going to accuse me of stealing the hearts of both his son and his daughter." She braced herself for the scolding. The rumors of her relationship with Claudia were spreading. However, to Eileen's surprise, the Count didn't seem angry. He said with an indifferent air, "This isn't your fault. In fact, I should thank you for making her so happy." The Count then smiled serenely and said to Eileen, "No matter what others say, as long as my children are happy, I'm content." It seemed the Count was completely devoted to his daughter. Eileen, still puzzled, asked, "Then why did you want to speak with me privately?" The Count hesitated for a moment before answering. "Because the Crown Prince wants to see Claudia." Recalling the Crown Prince's domineering and rude behavior, the Count scoffed dismissively and rolled his eyes. He then began to speak ill of the Crown Prince. "Although I've been politely refusing him, it's not a long-term solution, and he's becoming increasingly insistent." Listening to the Count's complaints, Eileen couldn't help but think that the siblings' sharp tongues were clearly inherited. After a long diatribe, the Count finally reached his point. "In any case, I can't stand the Crown Prince anymore." Suddenly, Eileen's mind clicked into gear. Her eyes lit up with understanding. "I see," she said. "You mean you want to find a way to appease the Crown Prince, right?" The Count nodded in satisfaction. "Precisely. I'm asking for your help. Claudia is very naive and often acts without thinking of the consequences. That's why I wanted to speak with you alone about this. I'm entrusting Claudia to you." Eileen nodded solemnly, clenching her fists. "I understand. I will definitely protect your daughter." But in the next moment, the Count sighed softly. "Protect her? With you?" Although he quickly covered the awkward moment with a cough, Eileen understood. The Count also looked down on her. Just as she was about to say something, the Count rubbed his temples wearily. "Just keep an eye on her. Stop her when she's about to do something impulsive." A drop of sweat trickled down Eileen's forehead. She couldn't refuse. Her best friend was incredibly generous. Claudia gestured at the menu and said to Eileen, "What do you want to eat? Just tell me, and I'll buy it all for you." A delighted flush rose in Eileen's cheeks. She turned to the waiter and declared, "Bring me one of every dessert on the menu, to start." But a second later, she took a closer look at the prices and nearly fainted. Claudia noticed Eileen's unease. "Do you think it's too expensive? Are you afraid to order?" Eileen hid her face behind the menu, whispering to her friend, "It really is too expensive." Claudia, however, just laughed even harder. "It's fine. It won't cost much. Order whatever you want." Just as the two were joking, a malicious voice cut through the air. "I heard that Lady Claudia rejected all those excellent suitors. Seems the rumors are true." Then another voice pointed at Eileen. "Is that the person Lady Claudia picked? I thought she was a maid." The smile vanished from Eileen's face as she listened. The person continued, their words growing increasingly cruel. "I was expecting someone impressive, someone who captivated Lady Claudia, but she's rather ordinary looking." Another person chimed in with a disdainful tone, adding fuel to the fire. "Eileen isn't a good marriage prospect. After all she has is debt. So monopolizing Lady Claudia is her only way out." Two noble ladies at another table in the dessert shop were clearly enjoying Eileen's discomfort. How could Lady Claudia fall for someone like that? Even if she's always been kind to her friends, she shouldn't humiliate those three gentlemen because of her. Claudia's fists clenched, her expression darkening. She turned to a nearby waiter and said, "It's too noisy here. I want to enjoy some private time with my friend." The waiter bowed apologetically. "I'm so sorry. I'll ask the other patrons to lower their voices." Unexpectedly, Claudia waved her hand dismissively, intending to book the entire place. The waiter was stunned. What? You need to make a reservation in advance to book the whole place. Claudia smiled at the waiter. Then I'll just buy this cafe. How much will it cost? However, Eileen tugged on Claudia's sleeve to stop her. She knew that no matter how many cafes Claudia bought, it wouldn't silence these people. Eileen soothed Claudia gently. I'm really fine. We can go to the clothing store first. If you're really worried about me being upset, then buy me everything I like. How about that? Claudia burst out laughing. You're so cute. Let's grab something else to eat before we go to the clothing store. Eileen had a sudden inspiration. That's right, we've already had lunch. Why don't we have some of that? A short while later, the two noble ladies were happily eating cotton candy on the street. Eileen sighed contentedly. It melts in your mouth. It's so delicious. But just then, the joy on their faces vanished. A slovenly drunk man, hands in his pockets, swaggered towards Claudia, slurring his words. My God, are you human or an angel? Or maybe an elf? You're absolutely stunning. The drunkard leered at the angelic Claudia, his intentions clear. You look so cute when you're scared. But this noble lady wasn't as timid as he imagined. Instead, she fixed him with a chilling, deathly glare. Is there something you want? The drunkard gave a fearless, lecherous grin. I'm not interested in that undeveloped brat next to you. I just want to get a good look at you. Insulting Eileen was one thing, but Claudia would never allow someone to insult her right in front of her. Suddenly, a blue magical barrier sprang up between Eileen and Claudia. In the next instant, Claudia's icy voice rang out. I'm not this beautiful for you to gawk at. The drunkard, still not running, looked at Claudia with confusion. What are you talking about? The girl's blue eyes were as cold as a demon's. She said ominously, There's only one person in this world who can appreciate my beauty. So close your eyes. Eileen, standing beside her, was petrified, clutching her two cotton candies. The drunkard, oblivious to how close he was to death, continued his drunken rambling. Miss, that's a bit harsh, don't you think? Claudia's face shimmered in the sunlight, but her voice was glacial. Do you know how much psychological damage your appearance has inflicted upon me? My eyes have been polluted by you. What are you going to do about it? She continued to berate the drunkard. If you're not an overgrown child, then you're an ugly old man beyond redemption. The drunkard's anger finally flared. How dare you insult me? I complimented you, and you think you're all that. He reached out a grimy hand towards Claudia, but the stubborn Claudia didn't flinch, making Eileen frantic. Just then, the crown prince, who admired Claudia, happened to pass by. Witnessing the scene, he quickly drew the sword from his side. However, in the next second, a group of men in black swarmed in, surrounding the drunkard before he could lay a finger on Claudia. The crown prince froze, his sword still drawn. Someone had just robbed him of the chance to play the hero and win Claudia's favor. Meanwhile, the drunkard finally felt fear, but it was too late for his cries of wait. The men in black seized him with effortless strength. The drunkard tried to evoke sympathy from the girls, crying out for mercy, but the men in black dragged him away without a shred of pity. As soon as they were gone, the crown prince, now superfluous, shifted awkwardly. Disdain flickered across Claudia's face. What was with that guy anyway? The crown prince hadn't anticipated that simply changing his clothes would render him unrecognizable to Claudia. The blow struck him hard, leaving him frozen in place. So, he hadn't held any significance in her mind at all. Just then, Eileen, ever the picture of sweet innocence, glanced at the stricken crown prince, then at the scornful Claudia, a sly, almost sinister smile playing on her lips. Good. Everything was going according to plan. Eileen was being harassed by the drunken old man, and Felix, surprisingly, was observing from within the crowd. Just as he deemed the moment ripe for a heroic rescue, Eileen's best friend, Claudia, couldn't stand it any longer. She and her bodyguards practically tore the drunkard limb from limb. Claudia, however, had clearly underestimated Felix's audacity. He removed his disguise, strode towards Claudia, struck a dashing pose, and exclaimed with feigned surprise, Claudia, what are you doing here? When I passed by, I thought I was mistaken. Claudia turned her head coldly, arms crossed, a look of disdain etched on her features. I thought I was mistaken, too. She assumed her coldness would deter him, but he mistook it for playful teasing. He leaned in closer, adding with an unfortunate air of possessiveness, Where have you been hiding? I almost sent the knights to your house to look for you. Claudia's patience wore thin. Why did everyone have to interrupt her shopping trip with her best friend? She gave him no quarter. her voice icy. "I've been with my friend, and we've been having a wonderful time. I wasn't hiding. Your Highness, you can't just send a search party after me without any reason." The Crown Prince, however, interpreted her explanation as a ploy for his attention. He waved a dismissive hand. "I'm the Crown Prince. Who would dare question me?" He continued, his tone condescending. "You've been ignoring my attempts to contact you. You're at fault, too." Claudia couldn't help but roll her eyes. Beside her, Eileen clenched her fists, fighting the urge to punch him in the face. How could someone be so infuriating? Desperate to end the encounter, Claudia turned, her voice even colder. "You have a fiancé? I don't understand why you're so eager to find me." The Crown Prince trembled with barely suppressed rage. He clenched his fists, trying to control himself, but the next moment he burst out, "Are you really asking because you don't know? It's because I love you. I only love you." As murmurs rippled through the surrounding crowd, he continued his impassioned, unwanted declaration. "I'm not joking. I won't marry her. That engagement is just a formality." He seemed to be moved by his own words, his voice choked with emotion. "I truly love you. Is it wrong to love someone? Loving someone doesn't give you the right to make them the other woman." Eileen, prone to secondhand embarrassment, cringed so hard her toes curled. She just wanted him to stop talking. But then, the Crown Prince's demeanor shifted. He was no longer lovesick, but glared at Eileen with a chilling intensity. "Claudia doesn't love me anymore. It's because of you, isn't it?" His eyes glowed with a predatory red light. He stepped towards Eileen, his voice low and menacing. "What have you done to my beloved Claudia?" The arrogant Crown Prince told Eileen he would grant her any request. Eileen, however, simply smiled and replied, "I only have one request, that you never confess your feelings to me again." The dejected Crown Prince now burned with fury, glaring at Eileen. "Claudia never disobeyed me before. Now she's changed. It's all because of you." Claudia's anger flared. This pathetic man, rejected, was now turning on her best friend? Like a mother hen protecting her chick, she stepped in front of a seemingly trembling Eileen and addressed the Crown Prince in her iciest voice. "Your Highness, you're being incredibly rude to Eileen. If you're finished, may we leave now?" Without waiting for a response, she took Eileen's arm and began chatting as if he weren't there. "Where did those men in black who protected us come from?" Eileen replied with a knowing smile. "I hired them, just in case you, being so beautiful, were harassed. We should learn to protect ourselves. We shouldn't wait around for some man to swoop in and save the day." Claudia clapped for her best friend, showering Eileen with praise. "You solved my problem so easily. You're a genius." With that, Claudia linked arms with Eileen and they departed, leaving the Crown Prince standing alone, utterly desolate. Eileen glanced back, a mischievous smirk playing on her lips as she took in the Crown Prince's misery. He's already been dumped, she thought. Just give it up. The two returned home. Claudia, who had just moments ago faced the Crown Prince with such fiery defiance, now seemed listless. National Day was fast approaching, and for the nobility, it wasn't a holiday, but an endless stream of tedious obligations. Families who had been granted territories by the emperor were obligated to attend the National Day celebrations. Claudia's family, the former House of Barine, not only possessed vast territories, but also immense wealth. Therefore, in addition to the celebrations, they were also required to attend the ball. The empire had a peculiar law forbidding the construction of buildings larger than the imperial palace. The Barines, with more money than they knew what to do with, had built numerous residences, each just slightly smaller than the palace. They even operated a hotel, also just a tad smaller than the imperial palace. This meant Claudia had no choice but to attend the ball. Eileen sighed, pondering the situation. What could she do to shield Claudia from the Crown Prince's unwanted attentions at the ball? Lost in thought, she was startled by the butler's announcement that her younger brother was on the phone. Eileen rushed to the phone, only to receive shocking news. She, too, was expected at the ball. She clutched her hair in frustration. She had no right to attend such an event. The only person who could have orchestrated this was the Crown Prince. He was clearly making his move to deal with her. This segment appears unrelated to the main narrative and seems to describe a different Fu Hainan, scheming/manipulative man character. Translating as a separate vignette, the manipulative man used every trick in the book. He even insisted on accompanying the girl when she went out to meet her friends. When the girl refused, the smile vanished from his face. His eyes turned icy. "Is it a man you're meeting?" The girl, startled, quickly stammered that it was a woman. The manipulative man's smile returned as he readily agreed. He thoughtfully offered to arrange for guards to accompany Eileen, but when she declined, saying, "Felix will protect me," his eyes widened in shock. He looked as if his eyes might crack. Watching the man's dejected posture, Eileen quickly added, "I'll be back soon. If you don't believe me, we can make a pinky promise." The man sighed deeply, a complex mix of emotions swirling within him. "It seems I'm no help at all." He pulled a precious magical gem from his pocket and placed it in Eileen's hand. "If you find yourself in danger, break this gem. It will allow me to find you," he added, his voice heavy with concern. "If anything happens to you, I'll never forgive myself." Eileen clutched the shimmering gem, a wistful smile touching her lips. "Thank you," she murmured. She slipped away to a bar. Spotting the alluring woman at the bar, a bright smile lit up her face. With a beckoning gesture from the woman, Eileen threw herself into her arms. Had the manipulative man witnessed this scene, he surely would have regretted letting Eileen go. Eileen looked up, her eyes sparkling. "Did you change your lipstick?" she asked. "This shade looks amazing on you." No one can resist a compliment from someone of the same gender, and Martina was no exception. She was the head of a secretive intelligence organization, typically cold and aloof to everyone except Eileen. She often found herself playfully pinching Eileen's cheeks, especially when Eileen gazed at her with those puppy dog eyes. It seemed to awaken a playful, almost teasing, affection in Martina. She truly adored Eileen. Her cheeks were so soft and plump. Finally, at Eileen's insistent protests, Martina released her face. "You haven't come to see me lately," Martina said, her voice laced with mock reproach. "Is it because you're Claudia's girl now, the most beautiful flower of high society?" Eileen sighed deeply. "She showers me with so much affection, so—" Before Eileen could finish, Martina, consumed by a surge of playful jealousy, interrupted. "So you're about to duel the crown prince in the streets for Claudia's hand?" Martina leaned her head on her hand, her voice taking on a mock sinister tone. "I might not be able to attend your funeral. Perhaps we should say our final goodbyes here." Eileen recoiled in mock fear. This woman and her jokes. She sighed in exasperation. Though Martina claimed she wouldn't personally intervene this time, she did offer a piece of information. A duke, who had also recently been smitten with Claudia, had approached Martina seeking information on Eileen. "This person has the power to make any girl fall in love at first sight," Martina revealed. "But alas, she's a girl herself. Even if he'd stumbled into the world of a cheesy romance novel, he still managed to capture the hearts of both the innocent heroine and the villainous woman, both head over heels for him." Eileen hadn't actually done anything. She was simply a good listener. Yet, Martina, the so-called villainess, found herself confiding in Eileen, and only Eileen. The two were nursing their drinks in a dimly lit bar when Martina abruptly announced that a certain duke had been making inquiries about Eileen. And not just any inquiries, but intensely personal, almost trivial ones. Things like Eileen's hobbies and her favorite foods. This left Eileen utterly bewildered. Martina, on the other hand, was fuming. The duke, she seethed, had nothing better to do than pester her constantly. He clearly had ulterior motives. Seeing Martina's open disdain for the duke filled Eileen with a quiet satisfaction. In the original storyline, the duke had manipulated Martina's affections, using her to achieve his own ends. But with Eileen's intervention, Martina wouldn't fall prey to his charms. After a shared laugh, Martina turned to Eileen, a curious glint in her eye. "So," she asked, "what brings you to me?" Eileen's expression turned serious. "You know I received an invitation to the royal ball, right?" Martina chuckled. "So, you found yourself another grave to dig, have you?" Eileen couldn't help but laugh. "Why, you're not entirely wrong," she admitted. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" She cleared her throat. "Anyway, because of the ball and the potential for assassination attempts, I need some information." Martina, ever the pragmatist, replied, "You know the price of doing business with me, right?" Eileen smiled. "Reciprocity," she affirmed. "If I want information from you, I have to offer something in return." Martina, clearly pleased, ruffled Eileen's hair. After a mutually beneficial exchange of information, Eileen returned home. The next day, Claudia dragged her to a dressing room overflowing with the Empire's most exquisite gowns. All gifts from Claudia to Eileen for the upcoming ball. Eileen, however, wore a look of utter despair. "Claudia," she groaned, "how much longer are you going to make me try on dresses?" She was exhausted. Claudia simply smiled. "They all look so lovely on you. I can't decide. Eileen couldn't help but retort, "You're putting way too much thought into what I wear." When Claudia denied it, Eileen rolled her eyes. Claudia had chosen her own dress in a mere second. This girl, blessed with breathtaking beauty, considered herself plain. In her eyes, the most beautiful person in the world was her best friend, Eileen. They were attending the royal ball together the following evening. Claudia had taken a single second to choose her own gown, yet she'd spent 24 hours agonizing over Eileen's attire. Eileen collapsed onto a sofa, sighing at the mountain of dresses. Claudia's perception of her was ridiculously inflated. Eileen considered herself ordinary. Why bother with all this finery? Resigned, she decided to put a stop to Claudia's obsessive fussing. Feigning arrogance, she declared, "A great beauty like myself looks stunning in anything." The nearby fashion designer shook his head in disbelief. He'd never encountered someone so average, yet so utterly self-assured. As he silently judged, Eileen urged him on. "Tell me I'm right. Come on." But the designer simply shook his head, refusing to utter such a blatant lie. Eileen was near tears. Couldn't a man just do his job and play along? Just then, a clear male voice cut through the air. "So, you're quite aware of your own charms, I see." Eileen sat up in surprise. It was Felix, Claudia's brother. He looked at Eileen intently. "It's precisely because you look adorable in anything that Claudia can't make up her mind." Eileen stared at him, dumbfounded. Were these siblings in some sort of flattery competition? Felix gave her a gentle smile. "I wanted to see you in your new dress, so I rushed over. But it seems I'm a bit early." Eileen, ignoring the flutter of warmth in her chest, latched onto him like a lifeline. "You're just in time," she exclaimed. "Please talk some sense into Claudia." Felix nodded in agreement, but he lingered, his gaze fixed on Eileen. Just as she began to wonder what he was doing, Felix picked up a gown and presented it to his sister. "How about this one?" Claudia, engaging her 250 IQ, declared, "If we're going with pink, Eileen would look better in apricot or blush." Eileen buried her face in her hands. She'd asked Felix to intervene, and now they were both contributing to the chaos. Just then, Felix watched as the designer continued to pressure Eileen. "Eileen would look good in any color, wouldn't she?" he remarked. The designer, who had just moments before been stubbornly insistent, now broke out in a cold sweat and finally nodded in agreement. Claudia examined the dress in her hands with satisfaction. "Eileen looks beautiful in anything," she declared. "And the craftsmanship on this dress that my brother picked out is exquisite. The lace at the bottom is shaped like cherry blossoms." "Who designed this, by the way?" The designer hesitated for a moment before admitting, "It was me." Claudia squealed with delight. "I'm giving you a bonus." At that moment, the designer could practically feel the weight of gold coins raining down upon him. He, too, joined Claudia and Felix in their chorus of praise for Eileen, showering the girl with compliments. The three of them reached a unanimous consensus. Eileen was the most beautiful girl in the world. Only Eileen herself felt like crying. This girl, who never seemed to wash her face, somehow had increasingly flawless skin. It was the protagonist's halo. Standing next to the novel's female lead, Eileen felt like a clown. Even dressed in the most expensive gown, attending the royal ball, she still couldn't compare to a single strand of Claudia's hair. The nobles sneered at Eileen, their whispers making her clutch her dress in shame. Just then, her best friend, Claudia, standing at her side, glanced coldly at the crowd. "Only those who are unhappy themselves enjoy discussing the misfortunes of others," she stated. "Let's ignore them. Otherwise, we'll only become as ugly as they are." But Eileen's spirits remained low. She looked down and murmured, "But you'll never be ugly." Claudia's brother, Felix, looked at Eileen tenderly. "Don't listen to them," he said. "Their words are worthless." Exhausted, Eileen pushed open the door to the room the palace had provided for her and threw herself onto the plush bed. Just as she was angrily punching the air, a rapid knocking startled her. A flamboyant man sat at the doorway, his face gleaming with oil. He gave Eileen what he considered a charming wink. Eileen, whose usual awkwardness around men intensified, said stiffly, "I think you have the wrong room." She started to close the door. The man quickly stopped her. "No, I don't. I'm here to see you. My name is Alistair. I have something to tell you." He cleared his throat. He launched into his prepared speech. "Miss Eileen, the first time I saw your beautiful golden eyes, I thought I was looking at jewels." He then dropped to one knee, striking a pose as if proposing. "That's why I took the liberty of coming to see you. I was afraid I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I missed this chance." Eileen inwardly cursed the man as a lunatic. It was their first meeting, and he was already trying to start a relationship. The familiar scene instantly reminded her of con men from her past life. She rolled her eyes and said skeptically, "I don't believe you. I'm not buying anything. I'm a penniless beggar. You have the wrong person. Goodbye," she said firmly, turning to leave. The kneeling man was speechless. This woman was even more difficult than he'd imagined. He quickly flashed in front of her, blocking her path. Eileen exclaimed in frustration, "I told you I don't have any money." The man said awkwardly, "I don't want your money. I don't know what misunderstanding you have about me, but I truly like you." Eileen was startled by his intensity. She backed away slightly and rejected him again. Undeterred, the tragic man grabbed her hand, his expression suddenly turning dark. Eileen struggled, but couldn't break free from his iron grip. Exasperated, Eileen kicked him in the shin. This was definitely the most persistent man on the internet. The wider his smile, the stronger the killing intent in his heart. He grinned at her, his voice laced with a chilling undertone. "I was planning to have that man make sure your filthy hands could never touch anything again," he said. "But you fought back before I could even act. You've spared him some pain." Eileen scratched her head, bewildered. "I didn't do anything," she said. Felix, however, smiled and uttered a chilling reply. "If it were me, I would have crippled him." Seeing Eileen's fear, Felix quickly softened his demeanor. He took Eileen's hand, his smile now harmless. "By the way, Claudia has prepared afternoon tea. Would you like to join me?" The mention of food instantly captivated Eileen. A delighted blush rose to her cheeks. "Will there be grapefruit tarts?" Felix's smile widened. Of course, he thought to himself. This little brown squirrel is so easy to please. The two walked side by side towards afternoon tea, oblivious to a sinister shadow lurking behind a wall, watching them intently. And from that day forward, suddenly, Eileen found herself surrounded by a throng of men, each vying for her attention. There were dazzling, golden-haired Adonises and energetic, puppy-like younger men. There were even groups of men confessing their affections en masse. Eileen couldn't fathom what made her so appealing. Each time, she'd turn into a rigid, Lego-like figure as she rejected the advances of these strangers. Eileen knew the Crown Prince was behind this orchestrated display. His aim was to isolate Claudia, leaving her vulnerable to his advances. But even if the Crown Prince sent a different man every day for 100 days straight, he wouldn't stand a chance against this unparalleled pair of siblings, especially when Eileen delivered her rejections with such finality. These rejected men, without exception, reacted with indignation. "Miss Eileen, you're far too conceited. You carry yourself with such arrogance. Do you think you're so special?" Eileen retorted irritably. "Do I have to be extraordinary to have the right to refuse someone?" Meanwhile, she seethed inwardly. "I'm boiling. Get away from me, you smelly men." The man, however, showed no intention of leaving. Instead, he sneered. "Do you think you're someone important just because you rely on those siblings? I suggest you get a grip on reality." Eileen chuckled. "You're right. I didn't understand myself at first. It was the Chamberlain siblings, Felix and Claudia, who enlightened me. They told me I'm beautiful and charming. Thanks to them, I have absolutely no interest in you." This man was in the midst of confessing his feelings to Eileen. But when Claudia, Eileen's best friend, appeared, the man promptly dropped to one knee and proposed to her instead. What he didn't know was that Claudia's heart belonged solely to Eileen. As if on cue, Claudia's ears seemed to filter out the man's proposal, focusing instead on presenting the flowers in her hand to Eileen. "I picked these especially for you from the palace greenhouse." Eileen's jaw dropped. Does the Crown Prince even realize he's being used by my best friend? The man watched in disbelief as the two friends shared an intimate moment. Their faces drew closer, and Claudia gently caressed Eileen's cheek. "Eileen, your face is so flushed." "I'm a little warm," Eileen admitted. "Let's go inside then," Claudia said solicitously. Eileen kept glancing at the unwanted third wheel, hoping he'd take the hint, but the man remained rooted to the spot. Claudia smiled at him sweetly, but her words were pointed. "You're still here? I assumed you'd have left by now. Eileen's hot. Can we please leave? You said what you needed to say, haven't you?" The man, utterly oblivious, opened his mouth to speak. "No, I haven't finished." Claudia's patience had clearly run out. Her face darkened. "But Eileen, if she suffers from heat stroke because of you, can you take responsibility for that?" Her normally bright blue eyes flashed with a sudden, chilling intensity. The man froze, petrified, and the Claudia who had been radiating icy fury just a moment ago transformed into a picture of gentle concern. She pulled out a handkerchief and began dabbing Eileen's forehead, as if the man were no longer present. Touched, Eileen took the handkerchief and asked, "Claudia, did you embroider this yourself?" Looking at the ambiguous pattern, Eileen ventured, "Is it a spider?" Claudia's face crumpled with mock disappointment. Eileen quickly guessed again. "Then is it the sun?" Claudia choked back a sob, remaining silent. "I have to get this right," Eileen thought, her brow furrowing in concentration. She was more nervous than if she were trying to appease a boyfriend. The pattern is stylized, almost abstract, with circles as the main motif. There are lots of lines around them and red thread accents. Plus, she gave me a bouquet of flowers today. Suddenly it clicked. Flowers! Claudia's face lit up in a radiant smile. Like an obedient puppy, she wagged an imaginary tail. "As expected, only you truly care about me." Eileen beamed, feeling a surge of happiness. "It's so hot," she suggested. "Let's go play in the water." Claudia squealed with delight, but her joy was short-lived. She sighed dramatically. "This isn't playing in the water, it's practically bathing." Eileen, looking at Claudia's pout, offered a placating explanation. "The palace is too public, not as safe as home. So, until we return to the manor, please make do with the bath." This person could make any girl fall in love with them at first sight, but they were in fact a girl themselves. Even after transmigrating into a reverse harem novel, both the innocent protagonist and the villainous female lead fell for her. Upon hearing that Eileen had made a new friend, the innocent protagonist became consumed with jealousy. "Your relationship with her isn't closer than ours, is it?" Eileen, flustered, immediately reassured her. "How could that be? You're mine." Claudia, a touch of jealousy in her eyes, glanced at Eileen. "Really? I don't believe you unless you coax me." Just then, Felix, Claudia's brother, suddenly appeared. "You have to coax me too." Eileen immediately smiled. "Of course, you're also mine." The concept of monogamy seemed to finally be making sense to her. Not far away, the siblings' father watched this unexpected scene with a cool gaze. His usually aloof daughter was now clinging to Eileen. "Eileen," Claudia pleaded, "kiss me. Didn't you say I was the most important? Please kiss me." The father sighed heavily. "Your relationship is so close. Does this mean I'll have to look after Eileen as my own child in the future?" Felix was overjoyed. "That would be wonderful." "Really? Then you should try calling her that." The Duke cleared his throat, his face flushing, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, he could only urge them, his ears red. "All right, hurry up, you two. The banquet has already started." Pushing open the doors to the ballroom, Eileen's attention was completely captivated. She was mesmerized by the villainous Erica. Her fiery red curls, porcelain skin, and sparkling emerald eyes were like a dewy, delicate rose. Erica addressed Eileen directly. "Would you be willing to live with me?" Eileen's jaw dropped. They had only met once before. How could she make such a request on their second encounter? Upon hearing this, Claudia immediately stepped in front of Eileen, glaring fiercely at Erica. "She doesn't want to." Erica sighed, a look of regret on her face. "That's a pity. I had hoped you would stay by my side." Then, she posed a seemingly random question. "If a flower isn't beautiful, does it still have value?" Eileen answered earnestly, "Even if a flower isn't beautiful, it doesn't matter." This single sentence seemed to strike a chord with Erica. A radiant smile bloomed on her face. "Eileen, you truly are someone who inspires possessiveness. I didn't expect this aloof villainess to have such a dazzling smile." Eileen, completely captivated, found herself with a nosebleed. Claudia, standing between them, panicked even more. She urged Eileen to stay alert, while simultaneously telling Erica to leave them alone. Finally, Eileen snapped back to reality. She thought, if this continues, won't it turn into some absurd plot where the villainous bullies the kind heroine to get me? She had originally intended to enter the novel to find a boyfriend, but she had accidentally charmed both the innocent heroine and the villainous beauty. Two wealthy and beautiful women were now vying for her. They both wanted to be with her. Exhausted, Eileen slipped away from this chaotic scene and ran to another room. She sat on a carousel, trying to soothe her frazzled nerves. But for some reason, the fox-like maid was giving her a strange look. A cold sweat broke out on Eileen's forehead. "These maids bring me meals every day, coax me to sleep, help me dress, and play with me. Why don't they ever get tired of it? And why do they always look so happy?" She couldn't understand it. She waved casually to the maid in greeting. Unexpectedly, the maid's face lit up with an expression of pure bliss, as if all her dreams had come true. Eileen thought, "This is like they're treating me like a pampered pet." Just then, a handsome man appeared before Eileen. He greeted her warmly. "Eileen, I'm back." Exhausted, Eileen blurted out without thinking, "Master, you're back." Felix broke out in a cold sweat. When did I reveal my true ponyboy nature to Eileen? Just as he was wondering how to respond, Eileen looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Why are you back in such a hurry? You haven't even taken off your cloak." For the first time, a look of strain appeared on Felix's face. "Because Duke Lumberg sought me out. He said he wanted to see you alone. Although I refused him, I thought it best to tell you." Felix stepped closer to Eileen, his expression serious. "As far as I know, you haven't had any interaction with him. Could it be that he approached you before because of your family's debt?" Lost in thought, Eileen didn't notice Felix's approach. "I think he definitely has ulterior motives. He was also observing you very intently at the banquet." After a moment of contemplation, Eileen decided to meet with Duke Lumberg. Felix froze, but quickly added, "Then I won't go with you." Eileen nodded in agreement. "Let's discuss a strategy more thoroughly later." She then tried to hop off the carousel, but she stopped short. Felix had extended his hands towards her. She paused. Was this a test of her willpower? Felix, surrounded by the aroma of tea, said, "Claudia bragged to me, saying you hugged him. Why do you only hug Claudia? Will you hug me? I'm your friend too. Give me a hug." Looking at the handsome man's dazzling smile, Eileen found it hard to refuse. Her heart pounded in her chest. Thinking to herself, "This is too much," she fell into Felix's arms. It was the first time she had been so close to a man. Felix said earnestly, "Eileen, you can't just follow someone because they give you candy." Eileen touched her flushed cheeks. "Isn't that what you're doing, looking at me with those strange eyes?" Felix laughed. "So you noticed? What if I asked for a kiss too?" Eileen's face grew even redder. She quickly struggled to get free. "Stop teasing me. Put me down. I've never seen someone who could make 1.3 billion girls fall in love at first sight. But this person is actually a girl. Even though she's transmigrated into a Mary Sue novel, she's made the original female lead fall for her. The novel's 3 male leads. The Crown Prince even sent 100 men to try and win her over. And the ruthless Duke directly sent someone to drug Eileen. But today, the murderous Duke has come to see Eileen in person. The drawing room was filled with smoke, making Eileen choke. Just then, a hand beside her cast a spell, bringing a wave of fresh air. Claudia's brother, Felix, with a grim expression, said to the Duke, "Please extinguish that." Seeing the Duke stubbornly refuse, the usually quiet Felix directly raised his hand and used a cleansing spell. Before the conversation even began, the tension between the two men was palpable. Eileen sighed deeply and said to the Duke, "You know, at first glance, you're quite handsome." Then, looking at him with disdain, she added, "It's just that your mouth is too foul." The Duke was rendered speechless. Felix, beside her, struggled to contain his laughter, finally bursting out with a chuckle. The Duke, feigning composure, forced a laugh. "That's quite clever. If you're trying to provoke me, there's no need. You don't have to be so guarded. I won't hurt you." But his violet eyes flashed with a chilling glint. He sighed. "What do I have to do for you to like me?" Eileen boldly replied, "Stay at least 10 meters away from me." The Duke spread his hands, feigning sincerity. "If I've upset you, I apologize. But I truly am just trying to care for you in my own way." Eileen had heard enough of this. She curled her lip. "Care for me how? By sending me to the other side?" Eileen stopped beating around the bush. "The reason I agreed to see you is to ask you to leave Claudia alone. If you could confess to him openly and accept his rejection, he might be willing to see you again in the future." Seeing the Duke's unyielding expression, Eileen fumed, inwardly cursing him. The Duke pondered for a moment. "Once I have him, I believe I'll eventually win his heart as well." Saying this in front of Claudia's brother was a blatant provocation. A flicker of anger crossed Felix's usually gentle face. "Anyone who tries to take Claudia from me will face my wrath." With that, Felix stood up to leave, extending a hand to Eileen. This insignificant background character, intentionally hiding in the female lead's shadow, was still noticed by the Duke. The Duke looked at Eileen with predatory eyes. "Miss Eileen, you used to look at me with such sadness, especially when I smoked. But a few years ago, you changed completely. You're like a different person." Eileen froze, a cold sweat breaking out. Is he going to discover my secret, that I'm a transmigrator? The Duke stroked his chin thoughtfully. "Perhaps your ideal type has changed?" Eileen quickly deflected. "I think you're mistaken. The man, Duke Lumberg, adorned with malevolent purple eyes, sneered. My dear Eileen, all I can offer you now is a flick of disdain and disgust on your cheek. It makes me want to know you even more deeply. Large beads of sweat trickled down Eileen's face. Her disguise had been seen through so quickly. Suddenly, a surge of magic lashed out towards the Duke. The man effortlessly tilted his head, dodging the attack. A third person in the room, Felix, spoke with a darkened expression. I said earlier, we're leaving. Eileen looked at Felix, Claudia's brother, in surprise. He was always so gentle. When did he develop such a forceful side? Just then, Duke Lumberg looked at Eileen and then gestured towards Felix. His eyes, the Duke said, are the eyes of a hypocrite, concealing the desires deep within. I'm afraid the real him, like me, is a monster. Felix remained grim-faced and silent, his hair obscuring the true emotions in his eyes. Eileen didn't believe the Duke's lies. If we're talking about desire, she countered, her gaze piercing, who doesn't have desires? The Duke chuckled, amused. True enough. I hear you're quite fond of money. I admire your honesty about your desires. Eileen, caught red-handed, felt a pang of embarrassment and fell silent. Unexpectedly, the Duke approached Eileen, leaned down, and stared intently into her eyes. While the Chamberlain family is indeed wealthy, he purred, can they truly offer you more than I can? Miss Eileen, reconsider me. The Duke's cold, sharp scent filled Eileen's nostrils, but she replied calmly. My relationship with the Chamberlain siblings began because of money. But even if their family were to lose everything, I would still remain by their side. To Felix, these words sounded like a confession. A faint blush colored his normally stoic features. The Duke is still not an option, Eileen stated firmly. Such a determined woman. You'll regret this, the Duke warned. But Eileen's gaze remained resolute. I absolutely will not. The Duke was momentarily taken aback, but then he chuckled softly. Very well. I will personally tear down this hypocrite's noble facade. Having a wealthy friend makes life so much easier. Every day is like your birthday. Claudia, meanwhile, was excitedly showing Eileen a mountain of gifts. Look at these pure gold shoes. And this hand-woven hat. Oh, and this handbag and evening gown are a set. The moment I saw this gown, I knew it was made for you. I'm even planning to hire a personal designer just for you. Looking at Claudia's enthusiasm, Eileen immediately praised the dress. I love it. But the next second, Eileen was struck by the 9-figure price tag on the garment. Claudia's generosity was far beyond her imagination. Claudia looked at Eileen expectantly. I also want to create a brand for you as a birthday present. I've even thought of the name, Rain. Eileen blushed and closed her eyes. Rain, just her name without the, It was mortifyingly sweet. You've already given me enough birthday presents, Eileen quickly interjected. By the way, you should take a look at this. Rejected, Claudia let out a mournful whimper and drooped her metaphorical ears. Eileen seriously opened the map in her hands, marked with her own scribbles. Pointing to an island, she explained, thousands of years ago, when the demon realm was opened, this place became a passage between the human and demon worlds. Because of this, the island is filled with malevolent energy. Legend says the land was once barren, unable to support any crops. But at some point, the soil became fertile and a lush forest grew. Eileen smiled confidently. This means there must be the legendary spirits on the island. And judging by the island's transformation, they're not ordinary spirits. But the next second, Eileen deflated. The island is forbidden to outsiders. How can we get in? Both siblings chuckled. What kind of problem is that? Just by the island. Eileen was stunned by the sheer audacity of the suggestion. She stared at Claudia, speechless. Claudia simply beamed. I felt like your birthday presents were missing something. This island is the perfect finishing touch. Plus, it's summer. We can go on vacation there. Eileen smiled wryly. Claudia and Felix truly were loaded. This vacation idea was brilliant. But wait, what about the spirits? Claudia, scratching her head, let out a hearty laugh. We can look for the spirits while we're there. Meanwhile, a young woman was seeking advice from her best friend on how to approach someone. Unexpectedly, her friend delivered a stinging, yet playful, response. I just have to beckon, and men come flocking. The young woman gave an awkward laugh, self-conscious about her ordinary appearance compared to her friend's stunning beauty. Suddenly, Claudia's expression shifted. A thought struck her, and her face paled, dropping her ice cream in shock. Don't tell me, you have someone you like? Eileen frantically denied it. No, there's just someone I think is pretty great. Her explanation only seemed to make things worse. Claudia panicked. You think someone is pretty great. What does this guy do? Eileen, exasperated, insisted. It's not like that. I just mean he seems like a genuinely good person, and I'd like to get to know him better. That's all. Claudia's usually composed facade crumbled. She looked at Eileen, stunned. You think he's good? Tell me, who is this person who's bewitched you? Faced with Claudia's anxious questioning, Eileen was at a loss for words. Just then, a gentle male voice called out, Claudia, your mother is looking for you. Claudia pouted. Of all times. Why now? Disgruntled, she reluctantly excused herself. Eileen smiled and greeted the newcomer. Felix, you're back. He pulled her inflatable pool ring closer with one hand. Eileen, who was that? Seeing a flicker of intensity in Felix's eyes, Eileen felt a twinge of fear. She instinctively averted her gaze, trying to escape the subtle pressure emanating from him. That was the second prince, His Highness. Felix's hand tightened on the pool ring, his knuckles white. He abruptly pulled Eileen towards the edge. Wait, she stammered, startled. But Felix was already close, his gaze fixed intently on hers. Are you saying you want to get close to the second prince? Looking into his face, Eileen felt her heart skip a beat. No, she told herself firmly. This is Claudia's brother. She quickly looked away. I just want to gain his favor. The tension in Felix's posture instantly dissipated. He resumed his usual gentle demeanor, a smile gracing his lips. Oh, is that all? Felix gently stroked Eileen's hair. I won't stop you, but it's dangerous. Don't be reckless. After receiving Eileen's reassurance, Felix extended a hand. By the way, are you getting out? After you've showered, could I steal a moment of your time? Eileen readily agreed, but the fleeting intensity she'd seen in Felix's eyes lingered in her mind. This handsome young man, normally indifferent to romance, found himself struggling to suppress unsettling thoughts when he was around her. When he heard Eileen mention wanting to get close to the second prince, a shadow crossed his features. Eileen instinctively recoiled from the intensity in his gaze, stammering her explanation. I just want to gain his favor. Suddenly, the tension surrounding Felix vanished. He smiled. Oh, is that all? He then patted Eileen's head. I won't stop you, but it's dangerous. Don't be reckless. Seeing her nod in understanding, his smile widened. He extended a hand towards Eileen in the pool. By the way, are you getting out? After you've showered, could I steal a moment of your time? Eileen happily agreed. Felix led her to his father's study. Eileen, puzzled, glanced at the serious faces of father and son. What's going on? She whispered to Felix. He whispered back, I'm guessing you've already formulated a plan to deal with that wicked crown prince. Don't worry about it alone. We can figure this out together. It's always better to have a strong teammate to help solve problems. Eileen nodded happily. The Count, who had been sitting silently, frowned. Are you prepared? Felix has told me about your precognitive abilities. He sighed. I plan to keep this from Claudia for now. She would be devastated if she knew. Eileen's heart sank. Keeping it from Claudia, won't that make it even harder for her later? The Count nodded heavily. That's a possibility, but you know how naive Claudia is. She's impulsive and doesn't always think things through. We need to be careful about how we handle this. Eileen understood. She recounted her premonition, detailing the crown prince's ruthless schemes to manipulate and control Claudia. The Count, usually a man of composure, was visibly enraged. But in front of Eileen, the Count managed to restrain himself. He let out a long sigh to calm his nerves. They're inhuman, he muttered. Eileen stared at him in disbelief. Do you believe what I'm saying? The Count shook his head wearily. The Crown Prince's recent actions, they make it hard not to believe. Before, he'd be causing a ruckus, practically insane because he couldn't see Chloe. Now, suddenly, he's gone quiet. Eileen noted the shift in the Count's address of Lucas from His Highness the Crown Prince to simply Crown Prince. She cautiously asked, when did the Crown Prince become so quiet? Upon learning it was after National Day, Eileen huffed indignantly. Those guys must be working together. That childish Crown Prince. Just because a woman rejected him, he wants to destroy the world? The three of them were discussing how to deal with the Crown Prince. Eileen spoke with a grave expression. I saw in a prophecy. The Crown Prince possesses the demon's ritual implement. Sealed within it is the demon Relodge, who represents struggle and victory. Seeing the somber expressions on his father and Eileen's faces, Felix offered a faint smile. Don't worry, he said. Everything will be all right. The Count's brow furrowed. All right, do you intend to sacrifice yourself? Felix closed his eyes wearily. Rather than sacrifice, he murmured, I will bear this burden. With a bang, the Count slammed his hand on the desk. Don't talk nonsense. Are you planning to accept the demon's power? Have you gone mad? Felix's expression remained calm. I have no other choice. But the Count vehemently disagreed. No, even if you survive accepting the demon's power, if anyone finds out, you'll be punished immediately. Regardless of whether the demon consumes you or not, they'll call you a traitor, a demon worshiper. Not only you, but our entire family will be implicated. We should consider negotiating with the crown prince. But Felix simply smiled, offering no further response. Unable to bear the oppressive atmosphere, Eileen slipped out of the room to find her good friend Claudia. Claudia sat across from a gentlewoman, the Countess. Eileen beamed, offering a cheerful greeting. Lady Olivia, hello, did you have a good day? The usually dignified Countess brightened considerably upon seeing Eileen. I haven't seen you all day. How can I have a good day? But now that I see you, she added, I feel like it's been a wonderful day after all. The Countess and Eileen shared a laugh, but Claudia, sitting beside them, looked utterly exhausted. Eileen, Claudia asked, where's my brother? Eileen hesitated, unsure how to phrase it. She scratched her head awkwardly. Well, how do I put this? The Count is giving him a severe scolding. Claudia's eyes widened with worry. Scolding? Father has never scolded me. The Countess, overhearing, clenched her fists in anger. That old fool. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Eileen quickly intervened, trying to soothe the agitated pair. Actually, Felix is also at fault. After hearing Eileen's explanation, their expressions grew complex. Later that evening, Eileen came to treat Felix's injuries. Oh, she sighed, her voice filled with concern. What a shame about your handsome face. Why did you say those things? Felix simply smiled, offering no explanation. Annoyed, Eileen pinched his wound. You can still smile after all that. Felix seemed to finally register her displeasure. Are you angry? He asked. The girl looked at him with a mixture of sorrow and concern. Of course I'm worried. How can you so casually talk about dying? This manipulative young man had intentionally gotten injured, hoping to garner sympathy from the girl he secretly admired. But the girl tilted her head, confused. Does a small injury like this really need bandaging? Seeing his ploy fail, he resorted to another tactic, playing the damsel in distress. Felix leaned closer to Eileen, his face, usually as impassive as the high mountain snows, now etched with vulnerability. He subtly placed a hand behind her. But I was hoping you would tend to it for me. Gazing at that divinely sculpted face, Eileen's heart pounded uncontrollably. Flustered, her lips formed a small O of surprise. Felix chuckled softly, amused by her reaction. Blushing, Eileen cleared her throat. Fine, I'll help you, she mumbled. Then, picking up a finger dipped in ointment, she poked rather forcefully at his wound. After finishing, Eileen cupped her chin in her hand, studying his face with a thoughtful expression. My, what a handsome face. By the way, you didn't have to bend down like that to accommodate me. Isn't it tiring? Felix shook his head. It's fine. Then, in a gentle voice, he called out to Eileen. I'll be fine. Actually, when it comes to enduring things, I'm better than anyone. Eileen didn't understand what Felix meant by enduring. She laughed and punched him playfully. Didn't I tell you? You don't have to endure anything in front of me. Felix turned away, saying mournfully, this time, please forgive me. I'm sorry. But the girl didn't take his words to heart. She said casually, even if you laugh until your face splits, I won't forgive you. That night, Eileen had a very strange dream. She saw the Count's estate enveloped in a dark aura. Claudia, waking in the dead of night for a drink of water, found the castle eerily silent. Claudia called out helplessly for her parents, but received no response. She had no choice but to go to her brother Felix's room. However, the scene before her eyes made her blood run cold. Felix was in the midst of a massacre. Did you, without leaving a single one, kill everyone in your family? Felix turned to look at Claudia. His bloodthirsty, demonic eyes terrified Claudia, and tears streamed down her face unconsciously. She asked fearfully, Who are you? With a piercing scream, Eileen jolted awake from the nightmare. She felt as if she had just been pulled from the water, drenched in a cold sweat. Eileen covered her eyes, seemingly still trapped in the emotions of the nightmare. Why would I dream of such a thing? A foot, clad in an expensive leather shoe, stepped onto Felix's shoulder. Felix gritted his teeth, determined not to let the perverse Duke Lumberg hear him cry out in pain. Duke Lumberg smirked at Felix, a flush of excitement rising on his face. Wow, you're really something. He watched Felix cough up blood, licking his back teeth in delight. But then, a pale hand touched the Duke's shoulder. Interrupting him, the crown prince said, "You're the same as always. You always like to waste time on useless things." Watching the crown prince's frown, Duke Lumberg bowed his head slightly. "This is my only hobby. Please don't interfere." The crown prince took a deep breath in frustration. "I'm going back. Don't play too long. Hurry up and come." Duke Lumberg asked the crown prince impudently, "Do you want to primp yourself before you see Lady Claudia?" Hearing his sister's name, Felix clenched his fists. He used the last vestiges of his magic to attack the Duke. A snowflake blossomed on the Duke's pale ankle. He bent over in pain, inspecting the mark. Looking into Felix's defiant eyes, Duke Lumberg chuckled. "I didn't think you still had the strength to use magic." He seemed completely unconcerned by Felix's attack. Laughing loudly, he asked the holy knight beside him, "He almost cut off my foot. Can you heal me?" The holy knight, leaning against the shadows, refused impassively. Then, as if Felix were already dead, the two began to chat casually. Duke Lumberg chuckled. "Damn it, our little group really isn't very united, is it?" The holy knight closed his eyes and sighed, his hands clasped. "Did you just realize that now? This should never have happened in the first place. This is the first time, and it will also be the last time, that I participate in something like this." But the Duke's smile only widened. "Is that so? I won't stop until I have Claudia. If you want to end this here, you can leave now. I won't stop you." The holy knight glared at the shameless man. "Thanks to your involvement, my faith has completely crumbled starting today. And you're still saying such things. You truly have no shame." The man in the ornate suit shook his head. "You're the one who chose to join. Why are you getting angry at me?" He pulled a flame ring from his pocket, put it on his finger, and lit a cigarette. Then, he blew the smoke into Felix's face. Holding Felix's chin in one hand, he taunted, "I can forgive you for injuring my leg like this." But he didn't finish his sentence. Felix, seizing the opportunity while the Duke was distracted, slapped him. The Duke gripped Felix's blood-stained face with a black-gloved hand. "Stop struggling," he said excitedly. Then, he brought the cigarette to Felix's lips, tempting him. "Try inhaling deeply and then exhaling." Hearing Felix choke on the smoke, a glint of pleasure flashed in the Duke's violet eyes. He looked up and down at Felix, who had been tortured into a rag doll, with an admiring gaze. "Good," he said. "A puff of this will dull the pain for a while. It won't last, but it'll give you time. Time to leave a message for your beloved family, and for the one you love." Duke Lumberg tossed aside the cigarette, but a cruel smile twisted his lips. "If you kill yourself," he continued, "the demon inside you will devour you completely. So, wouldn't it be better to have a little chat with it, than die peacefully?" With that, the Duke, in a gesture of mock kindness, pulled a fresh pack of cigarettes from his pocket and placed it on Felix's leg. He then produced a ring with a built-in lighter, a flickering flame dancing on its surface, and lit the cigarette for Felix, the action a deliberate taunt. "I wonder if Lady Eileen will whisper those words to you that she once whispered to me, those sweet words of affection." The Duke rose, waving a hand dismissively at Felix, as if bidding farewell to a friend. "I wonder if we'll ever share another smoke together." As the door clicked shut, the last vestiges of light faded from the room. Felix closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling him under, his breath growing shallow. But then, a burst of laughter erupted, a sound of triumph. With a clang, the magician concealed within Felix's prosthetic arm was ripped out and discarded onto the floor. He summoned a blaze of fire magic, engulfing the house in flames. A surge of power coursed through him, invigorating his previously limp body. Felix tossed aside his glasses, his hands covering his face as he roared with laughter. "I feel incredibly light." He strode out of the burning mansion. Time to go back. Meanwhile, Eileen, nestled amongst a pile of plush toys, slept soundly, oblivious to Felix's ordeal. A primal sense of danger stirred her from her slumber. Rubbing the sleep from her eyes, she looked blearily at the shadowy figure looming over her. "Who's there?" Felix, covered in blood, extended a hand towards the delicate Eileen. His normally gentle blue eyes now burned with a predatory gleam. The seemingly gentle nobleman, consumed by the darkness within him, had instinctively sought out the room of the girl he secretly admired. He reached out to her. Eileen, sitting up in bed, gazed up at the imposing figure. She noticed his eyes, usually the calming blue of the ocean, were now a fiery, unsettling red. Hesitantly, she whispered his name. "Felix?" His hand froze in midair, the conflicting desires to touch her and to restrain himself tearing him apart. A demonic whisper slithered into his mind. Why hesitate? I know you desire her. Felix squeezed his eyes shut, fighting against the insidious voice, struggling to regain control. Then, in a swift change, he gently stroked Eileen's hair, a smile so wide it crinkled the corners of his eyes. I'm back safely. Eileen was bewildered. Why was Felix in her room in the middle of the night? She pinched her cheek hard. Ouch, I'm not dreaming. Are you really Felix? Her actions brought a wry smile to Felix's face. He started to speak, but Eileen suddenly cried out, Wait, what happened to you? You're covered in blood. Forgetting all propriety, she frantically patted him down, checking for wounds. Are you really all right? A faint blush colored Felix's pale cheeks. I'm fine, he mumbled. Please stop touching me. Concerned, Eileen apologized, then immediately tried to pull him towards her, wanting to tend to his injuries, her hands reaching out to support him. The physical contact stirred the demon within Felix. It taunted him relentlessly. You could take her. You could share the pleasures of hell with her. Why don't you? You fool, Felix muttered under his breath. I wish he would just shut up. The three men had worked together to humiliate him, his white shirt now stained crimson with blood. After the three men had left, satisfied with their cruelty, he calmly lit a cigarette. With an unnerving calmness, he pulled an arrow from his shoulder. The demon continued its incessant chatter. Just give me half of your body and soul. I'll give you power beyond human comprehension. Doesn't that tempt you? If the demon had eyes, it would have seen the look of utter indifference, even disdain, on Felix's face. The offer held no appeal. Felix's continued silence enraged the demon. It roared within him. You brat, don't ignore me. Felix continued to ignore him. He just reached up to wipe the blood from his glasses when the demon, directly controlling Felix's body, shattered them. A sneering voice echoed. How about that? This is my power. Don't you want it? Felix stared at the shattered remnants in his hand, his resolve to ignore the demon within hardening. But the voice persisted. This isn't even all of it. Believe me now. Answer me. The demon waited, a simmering silence stretching between them. No answer came from Felix, only the meticulous sweeping of the broken glass from the floor. The demon roared in frustration. You're still ignoring me? Then, the arrogant demon, in a surprising turn, began to bargain. Do you think half is too much? How about a third? A quarter? We can negotiate. Felix sighed, the rumble of thunder echoing his weariness. Stop. You're giving me a headache. This simple sentence was enough to appease the demon. You finally answered me. Felix stood, looking at his own shadow. Are you Relage? The demon practically danced with glee. Yes, since you know who I am, there's no need for further pleasantries. I can give you anything you desire. Victory, endless glory. But Felix showed no interest. His voice was cold. I only want you to stay quietly within me. The demon, offering untold power, was being rebuffed by a human. I can give you anything you want, the demon insisted. Felix's expression remained impassive. I don't want anything. Realization dawned on the demon. Did you accept me on purpose? Just to seal me inside you? Felix gave a curt affirmation. The demon erupted in a furious curse. Damn it, how did I run into a madman like you? Felix shook his head. Please refrain from using vulgar language inside my body. He pulled a magical figurine from his pocket. He tossed it onto the spot where he had been lying. Stained with his blood, the figurine transformed instantly into a perfect replica of Felix. The demon continued its incessant chatter. You know what kind of spell is etched onto the sword that wounded you, don't you? Before you rejected me, you must have convinced yourself countless times. So you can't possibly not know. Felix remained silent, his profile cold and distant. This was a stark contrast to the gentle demeanor he usually displayed around Eileen. The demon continued, its voice dripping with smugness. You're possessed because you saved a child, and not even a member of your own family. Don't you feel wrong? Felix knew he was in this predicament because he had defied the Crown Prince. He knew the Crown Prince had coveted his sister for a long time, yet he still attended this banquet, this obvious trap. And the moment he stepped inside, he'd been wounded by the demon-infused artifact. He lowered his gaze, his bangs concealing his true emotions. I merely adhered to my convictions. Felix tuned out the demon's taunts, focusing on meticulously arranging the decoy. Looking at his blood-stained shirt, Felix, for the first time, asked the demon for help. Do you have a spare shirt? The demon scoffed. Why would I have a spare shirt? Felix sighed in resignation and unbuttoned his shirt, revealing the magic stone embedded in his shoulder. Then, without a sound, he ripped out the stone, the source of immense power, and tossed it to the floor. The demon had never seen a human so ruthless to themselves. Stunned, it stammered. You're insane. Don't you want revenge? Those bastards did this to you. You should make them pay. The composed man had snapped. He decided to take revenge on the 3 men who had humiliated him, but not with the demon's power. He would rely on his own. Felix extended his hand, tendons straining, and flames erupted from his ring, engulfing the room. He watched the inferno consume the decoy with satisfaction, leaving behind the magic stone, the proof of his identity. This way, he could disappear, a ghost in the shadows, and prepare his plan for vengeance. The demon, bewildered, questioned him. You left the magic stone here. You won't even be able to use magic anymore. How are you going to get revenge like this? Felix's voice was glacial. How I take my revenge is none of your concern. Just know that I won't let you have your way. Without his glasses, Felix's narrow eyes held a glint of madness. He smiled. I feel so much lighter now. Even the demon could only marvel at his derangement. You're a lunatic. He returned home and went to Eileen's room, recounting the entire incident in detail. Seeing Felix's seemingly carefree demeanor, Eileen yelled, exasperated. You're possessed by a demon. How can you be so calm? Felix chuckled and scratched his face apologetically. Suddenly, a bead of sweat trickled down his cheek, not from his wounds, but from a reason he found difficult to voice. Rilaj, the demon possessing him, was indeed a dangerous presence. He represented not only struggle and victory, but also love and desire. Felix clenched his fists, trying to maintain composure, but the flush creeping up his neck betrayed him. His gaze remained fixed on Eileen. A girl others might see as ordinary now appeared captivating in his eyes. No matter how much Felix tried to deceive the demon, denying any desires, Rilaj had found his weakness. The demon's voice whispered seductively in his ear. You're losing control, aren't you? Don't you want her eyes to see only you? Eileen, sensing something amiss with Felix, tentatively asked, Felix, what's wrong? Like a predator stalking its prey, Felix slowly approached her. Suddenly, he grasped Eileen's slender shoulder with a surprising force. The demon's low voice resonated again. Don't you want to hear her cry and beg for your mercy? Looking into Felix's eyes, now frighteningly intense, Eileen swallowed nervously. What's wrong? She whispered. Unseen by her, Felix tightened his grip on the blanket beneath his hand, fighting for control. His body was betraying him. His hand lingered on the girl's shoulder, yet his words contradicted his actions. Please leave my room, he said. Eileen froze, stunned. Was she truly that repulsive to him? She clutched the medicine box in her hand, bewildered. Felix withdrew his hand and turned his head away. I'm dangerous right now. The only way to keep the prey safe is to lock the hunter in a cage. Eileen didn't understand. Is it because you can't control the demon inside you? She asked innocently. Are you afraid you'll hurt me if you lose control? Felix remained silent. Then, in a moment of unexpected boldness, Eileen reached out and took his hand. I don't care what you become because of the demon inside you, she declared. I told you are still you. Even if it's hell, I'll go with you, seeing you safe and sound with your friends. I'm so happy. Words meant to be comforting to Felix sounded like a confession. His pupils contracted sharply, his heart pounded in his chest, and the heat in his face intensified. Eileen's voice became a distant murmur. He was losing the battle, and so, in the next instant, Felix abruptly pulled his hand away. His body stiffened as Eileen, bewildered by his rejection, softly asked, Why do you keep pushing me away, Felix? He lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze, grasping for an excuse. Eileen, you must be tired. I'm sorry I woke you. But Eileen, oblivious to the turmoil within him, still wanted to stay. How can I sleep in a situation like this? Felix turned, his voice cold. Go back to sleep. Thank you for healing me. We could talk about the rest tomorrow. Eileen hesitated, reluctant to leave. But you're so badly injured. I just want to stay by your side and take care of you. Can I even do that? Felix pressed his lips together. No one in the world knew the meaning of restraint better than he did in this moment. Fighting back the overwhelming urge within him, he forced the words out. Please leave the room. Eileen looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. Turning away, she said dejectedly, "I understand. We'll talk tomorrow then." But as she closed the door, she couldn't help adding, "Just in case, I'll tell the doctor about your condition." With the door closed, the facade crumbled. Felix collapsed onto the bed, the strain evident in every line of his body. The demon within him spoke, incredulous. "You're not human, are you? I've lived for thousands of years, and I've never met anyone like you. You actually resisted a demon's temptation. Even if I'm not at full strength, this shouldn't be possible. If I'm not human, am I a beast then?" Felix replied wearily, "And there's nothing strange about resisting. Stop trying to goad me into doing those unpleasant things." The demon's voice took on a sly tone. "Are you a virgin?" Felix sighed. "Yes, I'm really tired. Please be quiet." After a moment of blessed silence, Felix finally drifted off to sleep. However, the next morning, the demon's incessant chatter began anew. "Hey, human, wake up, wake up. I got a great idea." Felix, utterly exasperated, covered his eyes with his arm. "What are you making such a racket about this early in the morning?" Relaj, the demon, replied with unsettling excitement, "I still think you should take that woman." Felix sat up, rubbing his aching body. "Why are you still talking about this?" The demon chirped. "Even if you are a virgin, it doesn't matter. I'm here. I represent love and pleasure, you know. I can lend you my power, too," the demon offered. Felix spread his hand, his voice cold. "I don't need it." Relaj, flustered, quickly defended himself. "You arrogant human, at least let me finish. Although I've only lived for a few thousand years, I possess the accumulated experience of hundreds of billions of years inherited from my progenitor. This demon is tempting a human. I can make your crush fall in love with you." But Felix coldly refused. "I will respect Eileen. I won't touch her without her consent." He then asked the demon wearily, "Aren't you supposed to represent love and pleasure? Where's the love in that?" Unexpectedly, the demon, borrowing Felix's body, let out a sinister chuckle in the mirror. "Actually, true love starts with 'it doesn't matter.'" Felix stared at the demon in the mirror with disgust, wanting to punch his own oily, smirking face. Sensing his revulsion, the demon meekly apologized. Felix unwrapped the bandages from his body. He couldn't help but marvel. Before, it would have taken at least 7 days to get out of bed. But after just one night, my body doesn't have a single wound, and I feel so light. The demon laughed heartily, boasting, "That's also a power of demons. Pretty impressive, right?" Now, every muscle in Felix's body thrummed with explosive power. He examined his physique. The demon gloated. "The longer you keep me trapped inside you, the greater my influence on your body will become, and you will slowly be assimilated by me. I want to see how long you can endure this." Felix grabbed his shirt and shrugged it on, completely ignoring the demon's words. "I think you're getting more and more annoying. Are you really that bored?" At this, the demon bristled. "You madman, you dare ask me that? Aren't you the one who trapped me in your body?" Fully dressed, Felix muttered, "Honestly, you're so noisy. I'm going out. Don't talk to me anymore." The door creaked open, and Felix, usually so composed, wore a look of surprise. His eyes widened, staring at Eileen, who was dozing by the door. Hadn't he sent her away last night? Why was she still here? Fighting back the surge of emotions within him, at the very last shred of his composure, he scowled at the girl. "Go back to your room and lock the door." The heavy atmosphere made Eileen shiver. She asked, puzzled, "It's daytime. I'm not sleepy." Her voice trailed off as her eyes fixed on Felix. "Since yesterday, you seem different. Is it because he's not wearing his glasses? He looks quite intimidating without them." Looking at the man's stoic profile, Eileen felt a flicker of fear. "He's not smiling as much as he used to, and he keeps avoiding me." Her gaze drifted down from his shirt. "More importantly, he's become so attractive." Suddenly, Eileen hung her head, berating herself. "He's so badly injured, and I'm thinking about this?" Honestly, Felix looked at Eileen, a cute, bewildered animal, completely confused. What is she doing? The next moment, the girl's fingers were gently probing his wounds. "Am I imagining things? Are your injuries healed? Why do you look perfectly fine?" Felix cupped his face, his lips barely moving. "It seems the demon's power healed them. And please, stop touching me." Eileen quickly withdrew her hand, apologizing. "I'm sorry. I just thought it was amazing." Just then, Eileen's little toe slipped out of her slipper and she twisted her ankle. Just as she was about to fall, Felix reacted swiftly, catching her hand. Perhaps he hadn't controlled his strength well enough. Eileen cried out in pain, filling Felix with guilt. "Are you all right?" Eileen clutched her reddened wrist, forcing a smile. I'm fine. Is this also because of the demon's power? Looking at the angry red mark on Eileen's wrist, Felix's eyes were filled with self-reproach. Eileen, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, quickly hid her hand behind her back, trying to reassure him. Don't worry, it just stings a little. But Felix, terrified of hurting her again, instantly moved to the other end of the hallway. He hung his head like a dog that had done something wrong. Eileen sighed. Don't stay so far away from me. This man, he had only lightly grasped her wrist, leaving a deep bruise, just as he was remorsefully chastising himself. The girl cried out, saying he was too weak. Eileen, gesturing with her hands, explained that even something as small and fragile as a hamster could be kept as a pet. You just have to be careful not to step on it, she said, and be gentle when you pet it. Felix, flustered, urged Eileen to go and tend to her injury. He worried that he might have broken her wrist and anxiously wanted to call a doctor. Eileen, however, downplayed the injury. He, enduring the pain in his wrist, flexed his bicep and insisted, I'm really fine. A small injury like this, a doctor can fix it in no time. But Felix didn't believe him. You always say you're fine, he said. It's a bad habit. Eileen pouted. Don't you do the same? Felix sighed. We're talking about you right now. He leaned against the railing, an image of self-reproach and dejection. Don't always make me think that you don't mind anything. If this goes on, I'm going to end up seriously hurting. Eileen blinked, feigning ignorance. She crossed her arms and scoffed. Someone who got stabbed in the shoulder still has the time to worry about hurting me? Felix, seeing the subject change, hurriedly said, This has nothing to do with you. Hearing this, Eileen became agitated. But you're just an innocent victim. You didn't do anything wrong. I know you'd rather hurt yourself than hurt me. I feel the same way, Felix said, his head bowed low. But you have to understand, some wounds never heal. Eileen smiled. You're right. But if it's you, no matter what you do to me, I wouldn't mind. Seeing the girl's radiant smile, Felix's face flushed crimson. He covered his face, not wanting Eileen to see his blush, his shoulders hunching as if he wanted to disappear from the face of the earth. If you knew what I was thinking, he mumbled, you definitely wouldn't say things like that. This girl, so boldly, had just told her best friend's brother, no matter what you do to me, I wouldn't mind. Felix, unintentionally provoked, felt his face burn. His eyes widened in shock, and he couldn't bring himself to look at Eileen, afraid he wouldn't be able to control himself and lunge at her, terrifying her. He turned away, covering his flushed face with his hands, muffling his words. If you knew what I was thinking, Felix's eyes were red-rimmed. He exhaled heavily. Even now, I'm doing everything I can to hold back. Naive Eileen still didn't quite understand. She racked her brain, trying to guess what unspeakable desire Felix was harboring. Does he want to kill me? Suddenly, a dry heave interrupted Eileen's thoughts. She stared in disbelief as Felix coughed up blood. He knelt on the ground, his normally tall and strong frame now appearing fragile and weak. Eileen's voice trembled with worry. Felix, are you all right? Covering his mouth with one hand, the man coughed intermittently. I'm fine, he choked out. It's just my body rejecting the demonic relic. Eileen instantly panicked, not knowing what to do. A rejection reaction sounded incredibly dangerous. Felix quickly wiped the blood from his mouth. I'm fine. Don't come near me. With that, he abruptly stood up and, under Eileen's startled gaze, opened the door and hurried inside. With a bang, the door opened again. Felix, his face grim, held out a sword. To Eileen, if I do anything you hate, use this sword to stab me. Looking at the ornate, snow-white sword, Eileen hesitated, unsure whether to take it. Her voice heavy with apprehension, she asked, Who do you want me to stab? You. Felix sighed, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Yes, only then will I come to my senses. The man was completely oblivious to the fact that the object of his affection reciprocated his feelings. He foolishly believed she loathed him. Relage, the demon, chattered incessantly in Felix's ear. I thought your desire for her was one-sided, but it seems she likes you too, doesn't she? Felix pretended not to hear. The demon continued its relentless prattle. You thought he didn't like you just now, didn't you? That's because you're too naive to see it. I think he definitely likes you. As Relage spoke, the demon recalled Eileen's blush in Felix's presence, and let out a confident chuckle. My gut feeling is never wrong. He likes you. But Felix took this as the demon's usual taunting. He angrily snapped at the demon within. My patience has its limits. Eileen, however, mistook his outburst as directed at her. She raised her small fist defensively, her voice laced with hurt. Did I do something wrong? Felix quickly waved his hands, backpedaling. I wasn't talking to you. There's just this pest that keeps trying to talk to me. Watching Felix's irritated expression, Eileen tilted her head, puzzled. Pest? Who? But Felix didn't have time to explain. He furiously threatened the demon inside him. If you provoke me again, I won't let you off the hook. The demon, instantly cowed, acquiesced. Understood. Turning back to Eileen, Felix continued their conversation, his tone laced with concern. Even though you played dead and escaped, those three might still use it as an excuse to come after us again. We need to be careful. Suddenly, Eileen remembered something important. You don't have your magic sword anymore. That means you're no longer restricted by its magic. That's good news, right? Looking at Eileen's bright face, Felix couldn't bear to hide the truth any longer. Eileen, I can't use magic anymore. The once slender young man, now possessed by the demon, filled out his white shirt, the buttons straining against his burgeoning chest muscles. But Felix remained oblivious to his newfound appeal. He was preoccupied with the implications of his inability to use magic. Every time he attempted to wield it, the demon within him gained ground. Eileen's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with shock. What do you mean? Do you mean what I think you mean? Felix offered a weak smile, explaining patiently, like a teacher to a student. It means, I feel like my life force is being nibbled away. Does that make sense? Eileen, picturing Felix being gnawed on by the demon, patted his shoulder sympathetically. Yes, I understand completely. Felix continued his explanation. Everyone possesses magic. The only difference is the amount. If an ordinary person has a teacup's worth of magic, then I have 2 bathtubs. So, even though the demon stole a lot of my magic when it entered my body, I survived. An ordinary person, even with magic resistance, would have died from having all their magic drained. Magic is constantly being consumed and replenished. Felix paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. But the source of my magic feels stagnant. But, he added with forced confidence, I shouldn't die. Seeing Eileen's terrified expression, he quickly reassured her. I won't let myself die. As long as I don't use magic and give the demon an opportunity, there won't be any problems. Eileen, unable to sway him from his self-sacrificing stance, simply whispered, okay. The bookish young man had transformed overnight into a rather alluring figure. His shirt strained against his newly defined physique. Eileen momentarily forgot herself, then quickly shook her head. No. That's my friend's older brother. Off limits. Curiosity overriding her better judgment, she asked, what does it feel like being possessed by a demon? Felix answered honestly. It feels like boundless power, but I know that if I use the demon's power, it'll feel like fragments of my soul are being controlled. He sighed. I'm trying my best to control myself, but if I lose control, you have to run. Promise me. Eileen swallowed, her gaze lingering on Felix for a moment longer than necessary. Then, following his instructions, she pushed open the door. With a creak, Felix stepped into the Hawk residence. His family was waiting for him. Among them, his younger sister, Chloe, stood like a delicate magnolia blossom. Turning, her eyes brimming with tears, she cried out, Brother, but you were lost in the fire. Felix opened his arms, ready to catch his sister as she ran towards him. Like a small bird, Chloe flew into his embrace. He gazed at her face, framed by hair the same color as his own, and reached out, as if to confirm she was real, that he wasn't dreaming. Chloe's eyelashes trembled, tears threatening to spill. Felix closed his eyes, guilt tightening his chest. Then the next moment, slap! A sharp sound echoed through the room. A bright red handprint bloomed on Felix's pale cheek. Chloe stared at him, her eyes cold and filled with disdain. Eileen watched the siblings with surprise. Wasn't a reunion after a near-death experience supposed to be filled with tearful embraces? Why were they resorting to punches and kicks? Felix and Chloe's parents looked on, equally stunned. Chloe, usually so gentle, had become fiercely assertive. Seeing her brother, back from the dead, marched forward and slapped him hard across the face. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Returning from death should be a joyous occasion. Yet Chloe stared at Felix, her expression icy. The news of your death in the fire has already spread. We're supposed to be holding your funeral. Your reputation has always been so good. I heard people are even planning a public memorial service for you. Tears slipped down Chloe's cheeks. Should I congratulate you? She couldn't accept that Felix had faced death alone, keeping it a secret from everyone. She covered her face with her hands, her voice choked with sobs. I know the outcome could have been worse. I know you made the best choice you could, but I can't accept it. Now you're hiding here, pretending to be dead. You've lost your good job. You've lost your magic. You're like this because I wasn't independent enough. I couldn't handle those 3 men pursuing me on my own, and it led to them tormenting you. Felix lifted his head, his voice gentle. Chloe, this isn't your fault. As a woman, you have the right to refuse anyone's advances. Chloe crumpled to the floor, his words of comfort only intensifying her grief. I know, she gasped between sobs, but I'm angry that I'm powerless. I couldn't do anything to help. Witnessing the siblings' raw grief, Eileen felt a pang of sympathy. Her own heart ached. Ever the optimist, she suddenly exclaimed, I have a surprise for everyone. The 4 members of the Hawk family stared blankly at Eileen. What was she talking about? Under their gazes, Eileen pressed on. Why don't we go on a vacation to an island? A deserted island with blue skies, ocean, and beaches. We can relax and then plan our revenge. Let the crown prince, the duke, and the paladin regret what they've done. A sister faking tears at her brother's funeral, and her family applauding her performance. It was all an elaborate charade. A fake funeral designed to deceive those 3 men, the all-powerful crown prince, the duke, with his influence in both high and low society, and the enigmatic paladin. All 3 were ruthless in their pursuit of Chloe, and Felix, desperate to protect his sister, had suffered their torments and machinations. He had only escaped by faking his own death. Watching Chloe's convincing display of grief, Eileen forced a smile. Chloe's beauty was a dangerous weapon. What if it only fueled the 3 men's cruel desires? Maybe you shouldn't fake cry, Eileen suggested. Try acting angry instead. Imagine you're furious with Felix for taking everything on himself and ultimately facing death. Chloe spoke hesitantly. Can I be angry, even though he's dead? Eileen reassured her. There's no rule that says you can only grieve when someone dies. So just imagine, if Felix were really dead, if you could never see him again, what would that feel like? Then try to express that. After a long silence, Chloe touched her head and said, Thank you, Eileen. I think I understand. She glanced at her brother, a faint smile playing on her lips. Then, remembering that Felix was now forced to hide alone in a deserted basement, she sighed deeply. He should see this. Does he know that the road in front of the Baron's mansion, around his funeral chapel and grave, is covered with flowers? Flowers from people mourning him. As Eileen and Chloe talked, a sneering voice interrupted them. He can see it from heaven. They turned to see a man with a haughty, arrogant face. With undisguised contempt, they spat, Your Highness. The 3 men, dressed to the nines, had come to attend the funeral. They had killed the man lying in the coffin, and now they finally had the chance to possess his sister. The Duke, his smile serpentine, said, With so many mourning him, I imagine his journey to heaven is quite pleasant. It shouldn't be too boring, the Duke continued, deliberately praising Felix before Chloe could unleash her full fury. He was so kind in life, always giving love and care to others. Surely the gods will favor him as well. Finishing his sentence, the Duke cast a cold glance at the paladin standing beside him. Am I right, Sir Constantine? The paladin, once a symbol of holiness, now stood shrouded in the shadows of darkness. He glared at the demon who had dragged him into this hell. Choose your words carefully, Your Grace. The crown prince, oblivious to the tension, stood frowning between the 2 adversaries. Why did you 2 even come? I have important matters to discuss with Claudia. If you have nothing to do, just leave. But the Duke, completely disregarding the young prince, let out a haughty laugh. I don't want to, he sneered. The crown prince, finally losing his patience, shoved the Duke's hand off his shoulder. Can you stop interfering with me? Just disappear for once, will you? The Duke's smile turned sinister. Very well, then I'll just watch from the sidelines today, shall I? Watching the 3 of them bicker, a shiver of disgust ran down Eileen's spine. They almost killed Felix, and now they acted as if they had nothing to do with it. It was terrifying. Chloe, standing beside Eileen, finally had enough. She marched up to the crown prince, and then, As everyone watched in astonishment, she punched him square in the face. The crown prince crumpled to the ground with a thud, coughing up blood. Chloe's parents were stunned. Even the seasoned baron, her father, seemed to have his soul leave his body. Good heavens! My daughter just assaulted the crown prince. The crown prince's guards were in a frenzy. Are you all right, your highness? I'll get a physician immediately. The girl had knocked the crown prince to the ground with a single punch. As everyone stared in shock, the crown prince spoke, a strange excitement in his voice. You're finally paying attention to me. The guards moved to apprehend Chloe as an assassin, but the prince, seemingly enjoying the situation, waved them off. It's fine. Leave us. All of you stand down. Chloe finally snapped. The usually gentle and kind girl now radiated a dark aura. Clenching her fists, she shouted, How dare you show your face here? The crown prince touched the blood on his lip, a look of perverse delight on his face. Claudia, you're finally paying attention to me. That's why I said I wanted to meet you alone. My Claudia is still so tender. You've given me such a good excuse. Now, even if I throw you in prison, no one will blame me. Chloe glared at the smug crown prince, her expression icy. You think I don't know who drove my brother to his death? You know it too, and yet you still come here. I'll take that as your willingness to accept my wrath, along with Felix's. Like a thorny, poisonous rose, she glared at the arrogant man before her. I will never forgive you. The twisted crown prince, however, seemed to interpret this as a declaration of affection. He smirked. I gladly accept, and I don't care whether I earn your forgiveness. I only hope you remember this day. With that, the crown prince's invasive red eyes shifted to Eileen, his tone menacing. I suppose you know who's next, don't you? A predatory gleam returned to his eyes. He enunciated each word slowly, a clear warning to Chloe. The other mourners began to murmur amongst themselves, their whispers like a suffocating weight on Eileen. She thought, resigned, his next target is me, isn't it? But the crown prince wasn't the only one staring at her. She glanced back at the paladin. His gaze was so dark and chilling, she felt as if it could bore a hole right through her. Eileen, sweating nervously, her mouth forming a tight triangle, thought, it's the quiet ones you have to watch out for. This guy is the most dangerous. He kept staring at me like this last time, too. It's so unsettling. She turned to her best friend for support, but Chloe, still exhilarated from her outburst, was oblivious to the danger Eileen was in. Like a tiny hamster, Eileen tried to make herself as small as possible, hiding behind Chloe. Chloe's acting is really good, but she's overdoing it. These guys aren't just going to take her anger lying down. This is going to backfire. They're definitely going to pull something nasty now. The tall, handsome man continued to fixate on the pair of girls throughout the funeral. Eileen struggled to keep her head down, yet the intense gaze was impossible to ignore. Finally, she looked up at the crown prince. Your Highness, she asked, is there something you wanted to say to me? The crown prince immediately turned his head towards the wall, still denying it. No, he said, I was just thinking about something. But then, with icy blue eyes, he looked down at the slight figure of Eileen. I was thinking that if I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. So I hope you won't force me to commit such a meaningless act. Eileen broke out in a cold sweat, her hair standing on end. She couldn't understand. It's just because I won't let you near my best friend, Chloe, she thought. Why do you keep saying you want to kill me? While Eileen puzzled over this, the Duke, standing beside the paladin, suddenly burst into laughter. Stroking his chin, he said lightly to Eileen, It's a shame you didn't get to see Felix at his most pathetic. Such a pity. As he spoke, a feverish red glow entered his violet eyes. He narrowed them at Eileen. Although Felix said he could endure anything, there's at least one thing he could never hide. That's his lust for you. Eileen remained unmoved. The Duke patiently continued his explanation. Do you know what lust is? It's a sudden, overwhelming greed, a desire for another's body. But Eileen just scowled, glaring at the man who dared to laugh at a funeral. Your Grace, she said, does insulting an innocent dead man make you feel better? Think about what you just said. Is that any way for a person to speak? The Duke, taken aback by her reaction, shrugged helplessly. You're still as rude as ever. Do you think I'm making this up to trick you? Hearing you say that, I almost feel sorry for Felix. The girl who had punched the crown prince now clenched her fists and looked at the Duke with disgust. You're both murderers. You're the reason my brother is dead. and now you tell me you want to be with me? The crown prince feigned a mournful expression. Chloe, I came here with sincere condolences. The icy Chloe turned away resolutely. Please, just stop. She took Eileen's arm. The funeral is about to begin. Let's go find my parents. Rejected by the girl he desired, the crown prince flew into a rage. Damn it, he roared at the Duke. Didn't I tell you to get lost? You ruined everything. The Duke, unfazed by the outburst, calmly walked towards the coffin. He crouched down, delicately stroking the wood. I heard Felix was burned beyond recognition. They could barely identify him. And the reason for his untimely death was to save that little boy from the Ministry of Magic. He feigned regret for Felix. You poor, pitiful thing. The crown prince and the paladin, standing nearby, broke out in cold sweats. The Duke was even more shameless than they had imagined. The priest's voice, gentle yet firm, resonated in the hushed room. They say that those who are self-righteous only make themselves appear more base. Those who are humble and modest, on the other hand, appear more noble. Felix Chamberlain, his character was purer than clear water, warmer than sunlight, freer than the breeze, and more refreshing than the autumn sky. But after he became an undead, his eyes turned as black as shadows. He said that from then on, he would stop at nothing. But one day, he will trample morality and conviction underfoot. After all, that's what he died for. Eileen stood numbly among Felix's grieving family. She couldn't imagine what Felix, reborn through death, would do next. Her closest male friend has died, and yet this girl is looking for a man at his funeral. Her eyes lit up as she spotted the second prince in the crowd. He had dazzling blonde hair and sharply defined features, but beneath his eyes were the dark circles of overindulgence. He radiated an almost palpable exhaustion. Eileen quickly averted her gaze. Her head bowed as she worriedly twisted her bangs. Can I really do this? Approach him? He's a man. I get so stiff around men. I turn into a Lego person. After a long internal struggle, Eileen tried to convince herself. No, even if he's a man, I have to do this. I'll just pretend he's a woman. I'll win him over. She thought confidently. I can do this. I'm naturally popular, after all. Carefully, she reached out and touched the second prince's sleeve. Like a small animal, she gently tugged at his sleeve. Excuse me, would you mind sparing me a moment? Could we perhaps talk somewhere more private? Upon seeing Eileen, the second prince's eyes widened in surprise for some unknown reason. But then a deliberate, thin smile touched his lips. This was certainly unexpected. He followed Eileen to the rooftop. With one hand confidently tucked into his pocket, he began to speak. This is the first time I've been approached at a funeral, he remarked. The second prince's sculpted profile was striking against the backdrop of the blue sky. He continued, although I wouldn't call myself a particularly upstanding person. He leaned against a pillar with a frivolous air. Just a thought, but I never imagined you to be such a forward woman, trying to snag someone new on a day like this. Eileen stared at the man's mocking smile, utterly bewildered. What on earth is he talking about? She thought. What do you mean snag someone new? When did I even have a boyfriend? I certainly wasn't aware of it. He seemed perfectly comfortable surrounded by women, yet she was terrified of speaking to men. But today, Eileen was throwing caution to the wind. This was the first time she had ever dong da shan approached a man. The man was the notoriously cold-blooded second prince. Yet, at Felix's funeral, his eyes had been subtly red-rimmed. When Eileen approached the second prince, a mocking expression spread across his face. Trying to snag someone new on a day like this? What a frivolous woman. Eileen couldn't understand what she had done to make him think she was Felix's girlfriend. Before she could explain, the second prince continued. Regardless, I hope you can find peace. Although Felix and I weren't close, I often heard about him. You must be heartbroken now that he's gone. Seeing Eileen's impassive expression, a flicker of confusion crossed the second prince's eyes. Could Felix still be alive? He wondered, testing the waters. Why did it have to be him? With his reputation, thousands would genuinely mourn him. And yet, look at these people at the funeral. They're all just wasting air, thinking of the man he'd never met but felt a connection to. The second prince was overcome with sadness once more. He lowered his head and murmured, Felix. He even shooed away a bug I was about to kill. Eileen found the man's melancholic demeanor baffling. What was he trying to say? She wondered. That he was once bitten by a bug? But, determined to establish a connection with the second prince, Eileen played along. She offered him a warm smile. Felix used to say that even the smallest bug has its own value and the right to live. After all, we don't know what a bug's life is truly like. Looking at Eileen's gentle smile, the second prince seemed momentarily entranced. I think I understand why Felix liked her, he thought. This girl, using a funeral to approach someone as high-ranking as the second prince. He had assumed she was a frivolous woman. But unexpectedly, Eileen had brought him to the rooftop simply to talk about Felix. He heard her softly say, "Although Felix's death is a tragedy, I believe he died for his convictions." The second prince was momentarily stunned. He looked at Eileen properly for the first time with his world-weary eyes. He hadn't expected to find someone else who believed that dying for one's convictions was something to be respected. Yet, the words he spoke were, "I've heard you have quite the reputation for charming people. It seems the rumors are true." Then, the second prince stepped closer to Eileen, no longer restraining himself. He pulled her close by the waist, lifting the black veil that covered her head. "You know," he murmured, "even without all this talk, I would have been happy to give you anything you desire." But Eileen hadn't called the second prince out here for this. She immediately pulled away from his presumptuous grasp. "Do you even know what I want?" she asked, exasperated. The second prince took her hand possessively, his eyes fixed on hers. "It's obvious you want my love," he replied, a low chuckle rumbling in his chest. "And while I don't love you, I can certainly make you feel love." Then, the second prince's hand caressed Eileen's cheek again, savoring the soft skin. His husky voice whispered in her ear, "You're quite cute, you know." She started to push him away, but his other hand, clad in a black glove, gripped her firmly. Eileen struggled to break free, wary of angering him. After all, her goal was to gain his favor, to forge a connection with this powerful, if precarious, prince. As she desperately searched for the right words, his thumb, still encased in the black velvet glove, gently traced her lips. He chuckled. "I like this little mouth of yours." To say, "I need you," to a man she'd just met felt strange, but the second prince seemed to misinterpret her meaning entirely. He smiled, his hand lingering near her face. "I really like this little mouth of yours," he repeated, his voice laced with a flirtatious lilt. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. "I bet it would feel good to kiss it." Eileen's eyes widened in alarm. Mustering all her strength, she shoved the towering man away. "Stay away from me," she cried. "Don't touch me." She rubbed at the hand he'd touched, her voice trembling. "I didn't come here to talk about this." The second prince raised an eyebrow. "Then what did you come here for?" He was widely known as a playboy, a discarded prince who spent his days flitting from one pleasure to the next. Eileen took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "I do need you," she admitted, her voice steady. "But not like that." He spread his hands. "Then how?" She explained patiently. "I came to you because I see hope in you. You're like a moth circling a flame," she continued, too afraid to dive in. "You fear your death would be meaningless." The second prince's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected this stranger to see so clearly into his soul. "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. But Eileen extended a hand in a gesture of goodwill. "I can give your life meaning," she promised. "I need you too, but not like those who use you. I will make you into someone of worth." The prince looked her up and down, taking in her plain face and slight frame. He thought of her unremarkable family. "Absurd," he scoffed. "Do you think I'll believe you?" But Eileen remained undeterred. She held up a small slip of paper. "Of course you will," she said with a confident smile. "Just try working with me once, and you'll never refuse me again. If you're willing," she added, "please go to the address written on this paper." The second prince's eyes lit up like a golden retriever presented with a bone. He was clearly intrigued. Finally, he reached out and took the paper. The second prince is one of the few normal people in the entire novel. Unable to bear seeing the female lead trapped in the palace by the male leads, he decides to act. He not only frees her, but also escapes with her. However, his fate is tragic. The crown prince catches them in the forest. Grabbing his younger brother by the throat, his blood-red eyes blaze with madness. He turns to the female lead, Chloe, and says coldly, "So, you thought you could entrust your fate to such a useless person?" With that, he runs his brother through with a sword. Chloe watches in horror as the crown prince rips out his brother's heart, a gruesome warning of the consequences of escape. In everyone's eyes, the second prince had always seemed pure and innocent. He rescued Chloe not just out of affection, but because he was searching for meaning in his life. He dreamed of starting a family, and saving Chloe was simply a means to that end. He needed something to ignite his passion. Eileen was confident that the second prince wouldn't refuse her offer. After her rooftop conversation with the second prince, Eileen hurried back to the funeral, hoping no one had noticed her absence. As she rejoined the mourners, a voice startled her. "You're the lady of the Amber Estate, aren't you?" Eileen looked up, startled by the imposing figure before her. She quickly straightened. "Yes," she replied. "I am the Duke Daffodilathion, Prime Minister of the Empire." He stood before her, his expression cold. Eileen bowed quickly. "I'm sorry, Your Grace. I shouldn't have kept you waiting." The Duke cut her short. "My daughter, Alicia, sent me to find you." He said it was the first time in his life he'd ever desired someone. "Just what did you do to Alicia?" The brilliant and scheming prime minister, usually so composed, wore an expression of utter helplessness. He even sighed deeply. This is the third noblewoman in this novel to fall for Eileen. She's the Duke's daughter, a girl as delicate as a rose. Yet, after a single conversation with Eileen, she's determined to break off her engagement with the Crown Prince and be with Eileen. The Duke sought out Eileen, warning him, "It's the first time in my life I've ever desired someone." "Just what did you do to Alicia?" Eileen, flustered, insisted. "I only told her she could try looking at the world from a different perspective." The Duke remained wary, his eyes fixed on the seemingly harmless young woman before him. Was she encouraging his daughter to be reckless? Eileen quickly gestured with her hands, explaining, "It's not recklessness. It's about pursuing freedom. Everyone has the right to choose, even if their choices later lead to utter ruin." The Duke, a man of absolute control, would not allow his daughter to escape his grasp. He raged at Eileen. "The choice is mine to make, not hers. She has no right to define me, and you have no right to interfere." Eileen persisted, her voice firm. "I simply believe Miss Alicia has the right to choose her own life. If it were me, even if my choices led to my death, I would stand by them." The conviction in her words seemed to momentarily disarm the Duke. He stopped his aggressive posturing and turned away, coldly stating, "While you're whispering in my daughter's ear is despicable, I won't do anything to you. You best pray you remain under the protection of the former Count Rain family." The thinly veiled threat made Eileen's heart sink. She slumped to the ground, deflated. Just then, a cheerful voice called out, "Hey, I've been looking everywhere for you. Where did you go? Are you tired?" Eileen's exhaustion vanished at her friend's concern. He had once been the wealthiest man in the empire, free to enjoy his fortune and his daughter. But now, pursued relentlessly by the Crown Prince, the Duke, and the Holy Knight, he was forced to fake his death and hide in a rural cottage, living like a ghost. The girl couldn't bear it. She looked at Felix with sympathy. "Don't you get lonely? Wouldn't it be better to have a servant or something?" Felix immediately refused. "You're joking, right?" "No need." Eileen coughed and quickly pulled out a box. "Well, I brought you something." Felix opened it curiously and found it filled with potions Eileen had made herself. "You're too noticeable. I thought you needed a little change." Felix picked up a potion, contemplating it with a hand on his chin. "A lot of people know my face, so as a dead man, it's best if I don't show it around." He uncorked the potion and sniffed the strange aroma. Holding his nose, he downed the potion in one gulp. Eileen fidgeted, clutching her skirt. "I feel like I'm being graded by a teacher on my homework." After all, she had made these potions herself. Felix, oblivious to the potion maker's identity, asked with a serious expression, "Who made this potion?" Eileen looked down nervously, fiddling with her fingers. I made it. Is it bad?" Felix quickly reassured her. "It's your first time. It's actually quite good." But Eileen still felt a pang of insecurity. She mumbled, "It took me 10 tries to make this." Felix, sweating slightly, comforted her. "Even if it took 10 tries, it's still very impressive." Hearing this, Eileen's dejection vanished. She looked up at Felix, beaming. "Really?" But Felix suddenly slammed the box shut. "However," he said seriously to Eileen, "this potion has some potent side effects, so you absolutely must not drink it." The man before her, seemingly possessed by some unknown force, didn't seem to notice his own chest muscles expanding or the alluring scent now emanating from his body. The loose shirt he usually wore now clung tightly to Felix, accentuating his physique. And without his glasses, his eyes were like hooks, drawing Eileen in, making it hard to look away. Eileen fidgeted with a strand of hair at her chest, staring at him, mesmerized. Felix possessed a growing, tough, perhaps a decadent sort of beauty. Her gaze remained fixed on his chest. How did he become like this? His pecs were practically bursting through his shirt. Was this also the demon's power? Suddenly, a friend's words echoed in her mind. If I fall for a woman with a great body, then I want to touch her every day. Eileen flushed crimson at her own intrusive thoughts. She quickly covered her face with her hands, hoping Felix wouldn't notice. He asked anxiously, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Eileen stammered, I think I've been possessed by a demon too. Felix didn't understand. What? Night fell. Felix tossed and turned in bed. An inner heat made it impossible to relax. He sighed. So hot. Though Felix's ability to recover was strong, he felt increasingly alone. He attributed it to the strain of the past few days, his nerves frayed. His body felt heavy, as if someone were pressing down on him. Suddenly, Felix realized it was Eileen in her nightgown, sitting on top of him. A flush crept up his neck. His trembling hand reached out to her cheek, a gesture he'd never dared to imagine. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He gave a self-deprecating chuckle. This was like a dream. Eileen was leaning against him, her hand resting on his chest. His beloved, in a thin nightdress, had come to his room in the middle of the night. He maintained a facade of composure, but the beads of sweat betrayed his inner turmoil. Finally, Felix spoke, his face flushed. Even though this illusion is incredibly realistic, please stop. His large hand caressed her cheek. He knew this Eileen was a demonic fabrication, yet his heart pounded. He pulled his hand back, the self-deception too much. Lilach, he said hoarsely, what's the point of this? The illusionary Eileen was silent for a moment. Then, instead of disappearing, she placed her hand back on his chest. The unexpected contact made his muscles tense. He stared at the demon, helpless as it spoke in Eileen's voice. Felix, let's play a game. His pupils contracted, his eyes filled with a frantic energy. He grabbed the demon Eileen, pinning her down with his hands. I told you to stop, he said, his voice cold. Stop doing this. The demon laughed, a malicious glint in its eyes. You finally snapped. If you want to treat her like this, why don't you just hold her in your arms and cherish her every day? Even a demon, it seemed, understood the simple logic of expressing affection. But Felix didn't seem to hear. The heat in his body intensified, sweat dripping onto the sheets, blooming like dark flowers. He glared at the demon. You're not taking me seriously. Do I have to pierce my heart with my holy sword before you'll be satisfied? The demon's voice trembled. You know I'm bound to you. Are you trying to destroy us both? After the illusion of Eileen left, Felix sat, flushed where she had been, secretly savoring the lingering scent of her. He, a man of virtue, thought this clandestine act would go unnoticed. But the demon, residing within him, saw everything. As they say, we dream of what occupies our thoughts. That night, Felix dreamt of Eileen. She was like a ripe peach, covered in a tantalizing fuzz, her skin so delicate that the slightest touch would leave a mark. The demon's voice whispered in his ear, you clearly crave her. You pretend to be pure and kind, but underneath, you're a churning sea of desire. Weren't you just sitting there, red-faced, inhaling her scent? The demon sneered. You're so two-faced. You're more deceptive than a demon. Felix gritted his teeth, fighting the urge within. Beads of sweat splashed onto the sheets. At the same time, he thrust himself deeper, sensually drawing her closer, strand by strand. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. Only then did Felix realize that the love he had just grasped was merely an illusion conjured by the demon. He had nearly lost himself in the dream. Felix exhaled deeply, somewhat relieved that he hadn't truly succumbed to love. Yet, a flicker of something he couldn't quite grasp stirred in the depths of his heart. So it was just a dream after all. But in the next moment, a hand holding a towel reached out. A gentle, feminine voice spoke. I could tell you weren't feeling well. Felix, proud of his human composure, nearly lost it entirely in that instant. He lifted his eyes to look at Eileen. The girl looked at him with concern. Did you have a nightmare? You look terrible. Felix quickly averted his gaze, unable to bear her scrutiny. He muttered, I'm fine. But for some reason, a subtle tension hung in the air, seemingly emanating from Eileen. His beloved was taking care of him. Outwardly, the man appeared calm, but the way his large hands clenched betrayed the turmoil within him. Felix extended a hand towards Eileen. Do you have your sword with you? Eileen looked puzzled. Why? What do you need my sword for? biting his lip hard. The man knew he needed to inflict pain upon himself, lest he lose control and do something irreversible to Eileen. Sure enough, a moment later, Felix, his face flushed crimson, pulled Eileen into his arms with one hand, while the other guided her trembling hand towards him, urging her to strike. "I warned you," he rasped, "to stay away from me." Their noses were almost touching, close enough to hear the frantic beating of each other's hearts. But Eileen, bless her oblivious heart, looked at Felix earnestly. "You want to see if you have a fever, right?" Felix's mind short-circuited. Eileen continued, "Your forehead is burning up. You really are quite ill. Just lie back down." Felix stared blankly. The rosy, romantic atmosphere had vanished in an instant. He obediently lay back down. Looking at Felix's weakened state, Eileen couldn't help but think he resembled a prince trapped in an icy castle, lost in a deep slumber. But then the man uttered chilling words. If I die. Eileen's breath caught in her throat. He rambled deliriously, and she tried to soothe him. "Why are you saying such things? You've been looking after me for so long. If I died now, I would never forgive myself." Eileen placed the cool towel on Felix's burning forehead. The man murmured softly, "I feel like I'm dying, but I don't want you to be sad." He hadn't explained the source of his suffering, yet in that moment, Eileen felt a pang of understanding for the burden Felix carried, the bittersweet agony of unrequited love. A single glance from his beloved filled him with enough energy to run around the world, and it was precisely because of this that Felix, who had promised to teach Eileen magic, could now only offer her a stack of books and research notes, leaving her to learn on her own. Spending extended periods in close proximity was too dangerous for Eileen. Unaware of the true turmoil in Felix's heart, the girl cheerfully expressed her gratitude. "Thank you so much. By the way, did you sleep well last night?" After dreaming of Eileen, Felix hadn't slept a wink, but he didn't want her to worry. He forced a weak smile. "Of course, I slept very well." Then, clearing his throat, Felix apologized. "I am sorry. Even though I offer to teach you, I won't be able to explain things in person." Eileen tilted her head, confused. "What?" Panic flickered across Felix's face. He quickly covered his embarrassment with his hand. "I'm trying to avoid being alone with you. I hope you understand." A few days later, the day arrived for the three of them to depart for the deserted island. In front of the fire tongue, Chloe could once again unleash her superpower. This magic train was jointly developed with alchemists. "I absolutely love it. Why don't we just buy it while we have a chance?" Eileen quickly stepped forward to appease the wealthy Chloe. "Hold on, we're only doing a few commercials. There's no need to buy the whole train. It's a waste of money." Chloe obediently listened to her friend and gave up on the idea of purchasing the train. The three boarded the sleek, magical train. As it chugged along, Chloe's excitement grew. Gazing out the window at the receding landscape, she exclaimed, "I feel like we're going on an adventure." The hotel on the deserted island was bound to be rough. It probably lacked even a travel agency, tourist attractions, or local specialties. Getting around would undoubtedly be inconvenient. Yet, despite leaving the place she'd called home for 20 years, Chloe was overjoyed. Seeing her best friend so happy brought a wide smile to Eileen's face. "Seeing you this happy makes me happy too." Chloe, joining in the laughter, replied, "If you're happy, then I'm even happier." However, the next moment, Chloe rubbed her eyes and yawned. The excitement of their departure had kept her awake most of the night. She decided to catch up on some sleep. Ever since realizing his love for the girl, Felix had been constantly aware of a sweet fragrance emanating from Eileen. Unable to resist the alluring scent any longer, he finally mustered the courage to ask her, "Did you eat something sweet? Like candy, perhaps?" Eileen looked at him, utterly bewildered. "No, I didn't." "Do you smell something sweet?" Felix quickly turned away, burying his face in a book. Being near Eileen was becoming increasingly difficult. He feared losing control. Felix abruptly stood, intending to find another train car to cool down. Eileen, puzzled by his sudden departure, wondered if he disliked her. She instinctively grabbed his sleeve with her thumb. "Could you stay, please?" The rhythmic clang of the train on the tracks mirrored the crumbling of the carefully constructed walls around Felix's heart. He stared at Eileen in disbelief, a flicker of panic in his eyes. His cheeks flushed as he looked at her, drawing a shaky breath. "We're too close," he choked out. Then, clutching his head, he pleaded, "Eileen, be good." Watching Felix struggle to contain himself, Eileen suddenly recalled Bujue's words. "Felix has feelings for you." She couldn't help but wonder, does he really have feelings for me? If so, would I find it repulsive? What if Felix and I kissed? She found a thought not unpleasant at all. In fact, the mere idea sent a shiver of excitement down her spine. Lowering her head to hide her blush, she realized with startling clarity that she, too, harbored unfamiliar feelings for Felix. But the next moment, Felix abruptly pushed her hand away. Turning away, he snapped, "Why won't you listen? Please don't force me to use force." A girl tugging at a man's sleeve. It was a gesture most men found irresistible. Yet Felix, tormented by the demon within, pushed Eileen's hand away. He remembered her saying how much she despised oily men who used their charm to get close to women. More importantly, the sweet scent clinging to Eileen these past few days had worn his willpower thin, as fragile as a sheet of paper. He feared he wouldn't be able to resist devouring her. Felix turned to leave, intending to seek refuge in another car. But Eileen, our universe's ultimate bulldozer, suddenly transformed into a force of nature. She grabbed his hand. "Don't go. How can you be so irresponsible?" Felix turned, staring at her in shock. Had he done something inappropriate while he wasn't himself? Panic rising, he stammered, "What do you mean by that?" With unwavering conviction, she replied, "You've let me get used to your presence. Now you have to take responsibility for me." Eileen boldly took his hand. "Please, stroke my hair like you usually do." Felix's hand trembled. Was he dreaming? But the soft strands of hair felt undeniably real. Eileen reassured him, "A gentle touch won't hurt you." But he knew how desperately he wanted to. Felix ultimately pulled away. With a resounding bang, his fist slammed into the wall of the train car. Through gritted teeth, he growled, "If you don't want to see me lose control, stop this." Eileen flinched, staring at the cracked wall in fear. They said these rooms were soundproof. The walls practically shattered, and no one's noticed. So, no matter what happens here, no one will know. A daring thought took root in her mind. Felix desperately tried to push the girl he loved away, terrified of what he might do. But this time, she leaned closer. "You can hurt me," she whispered. "Just be gentle." Felix covered his face, trying to mask his emotions. He exhaled slowly, turning his head to the side. "Fine," he said, his voice resigned. "I give up. Do what you will." But his casual response didn't satisfy Eileen. Her voice was serious as she asked, "When you said you desired me, did you mean you wanted to kill me?" The man immediately denied it. He doted on her. How could he possibly kill her? Eileen continued, "Then by your desire, did you mean you wanted to break my fingers, gouge out my eyes, rip off my nails, and then peel off my skin? Would you tear out my heart? And finally, hang me up?" Felix, stunned by Eileen's words, froze in place. He stammered, "How could I ever do such a thing to you?" Eileen beamed. "Then it's all right, isn't it?" Beads of sweat, born of strained restraint, trickled down Felix's forehead again. He hesitated, but "I might regret it." Eileen, who had just shown a flash of insight, was now obtuse again. She completely missed Felix's meaning. Instead, she flexed her biceps and declared, "My body is very strong. You won't easily destroy it. Don't worry." Felix stared, dumbfounded. Had their conversation completely veered off course? He gestured helplessly at the damaged wall. "Even seeing this wall, destroyed by me, you still aren't afraid?" Eileen's bulldozer personality kicked in again. If Felix stepped back, she advanced. She grabbed the fabric of his shirt at his waist and replied firmly, "A human body isn't as fragile as a wall. It's true that human bodies aren't as solid as walls, but if you just touch me gently, it won't hurt." Then, Eileen smiled and closed the distance, burying her face in Felix's chest. Inhaling deeply, she said, "So please, just pat my head." She thought a hug would comfort the man she believed was secretly in love with her. She didn't understand that this man yearned for something far deeper. Inexperienced in love, Eileen assumed a hug was all lovers needed. She encouraged Felix to embrace her, then asked confidently, "How does it feel?" Felix remained silent, his face flushed from suppressing his desires. His hand rested on her head, but the demon within whispered, urging him to place his hand elsewhere. Felix's continued silence drew a puzzled look from Eileen. Finally, he answered, "I feel like my body aches more than when I have fever." Eileen's brown hair twined around his fingers as he added in a low voice, "But it's sweeter than death." The demon inside Felix looking out through his eyes, couldn't help but marvel. Eileen was even bolder than he'd imagined. Stroking his chin with a wicked grin, the demon thought, soon, Felix will experience ultimate pleasure. But this faceless demon was merely a fragment of Relage. The truly powerful demon was Relage himself, his body covered in seals. He scoffed at the demon fragment. As a part of me, you don't even know what love is. If humans only felt happiness and love, demons like me wouldn't exist. The demon fragment retorted, there's nothing greater than demons. Having lived for millennia, Relage had seen it all. He said darkly, but without humans, demons cannot survive. The demon fragment asked, perplexed, then what is human love? Relage's lips curled into a sneer. The bittersweet pangs of love seemed to surge through him in that moment. Love is something like both an angel and a demon. It can lift you to the heavens and plunge you into hell. It represents joy, rage, bliss, agony, and sorrow. No words can describe true love. However, most love ends in deep regret, and as a demon, I appear alongside that regret. If you want to become a true demon, you must enter the human world. If that's your desire, I can grant you freedom after this long war ends. The demon fragment chuckled, believing humans to be incomplete, inferior beings. Love, in his view, was merely something that made their bodies or minds feel more whole. The thought of impending freedom excited the demon fragment. He plotted how to consume Felix entirely and become a great demon. But as a mere fragment, he couldn't understand why his host was always in such anguish. Felix wasn't physically harmed, so why did he suffer so? This, in turn, made the fragment suffer as well. The demon fragment clutched its heart, murmuring, "This hurts so much. Don't make me feel this pain anymore." This rich young lady loves no one but her best friend. Faced with the ardent pursuits of the crown prince, the duke, and the holy knight, the girl only wished to flee as far away as possible. But these three obsessive men, they actually dared to lay their hands on the girl's brother. Delusional, they planned to eliminate his entire family before completely possessing this sweet girl. To protect her family, the gentle Chloe awakened. She decided to embark on a journey to seek power. Accompanied by her best friend and brother, Chloe arrived at a deserted island inhabited by spirits, intending to forge a master-servant contract with a powerful spirit. But on the day they set sail, the captain reneged. "Our ship simply cannot approach that island. If you don't want to die, you should give up." Eileen was stunned. They had traveled for 7 days and 7 nights by train to reach this point. Along the way, they had considered how the spirits might refuse the contract, but they hadn't expected it to end before it even began. Still, Eileen persistently asked, "There's no storm now, and the sea is calm. Why can't the ship approach the island?" The captain sighed in resignation and explained, "Because once the ship gets near the island, it's as if something pulls it down, causing it to sink rapidly. Ultimately, everyone aboard perishes in the sea." Felix, standing nearby, refused to accept this explanation. "This is preposterous. In this situation, why haven't you sought help from the central authorities?" This involved the island's former ownership. The captain patiently explained, "This island used to be private land. A merchant guild previously claimed the waters around the island as their own, preventing any outsider from approaching. We were unaware of the island's danger. However, a month ago, the guild suddenly sold the island and withdrew. That's how we learned the truth." Upon hearing this, Eileen fell silent. She had previously sent people to the island to gather information. Had they died because of her? Suddenly, a rumbling sound broke the somber atmosphere. Eileen cried out, berating herself. "In this situation, I'm actually hungry. Am I even human? What makes a true foodie? It's not just eating when you're happy, but eating even more when you're sad." Eileen was grieving for the people she had inadvertently caused to die, but she couldn't put down the sandwich in her hand. Comforted by her best friend, Chloe, Eileen's sadness gradually faded. She finally had an appetite, but the next second, a ferocious seagull swooped down and snatched the sandwich right out of her hand. For a foodie, having food stolen from their grasp was the most unforgivable offense. Forgetting all decorum, Eileen took off after the hateful seagull. "You thief, give me back my sandwich." "Stop." Chloe quickly got up and chased after Eileen, but she underestimated a foodie's tenacity when it came to food. She quickly fell far behind Eileen. Eileen, in her pursuit, collapsed onto the beach. Someone running on the ground could hardly compete with something flying in the sky. She lay sprawled in the sand, still muttering, "Give me back my sandwich." Just then, Eileen noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Lying before her was an unconscious young man, and he was someone she knew. Eileen rushed forward excitedly, shaking him. "Hey, are you alive? Wake up." With Eileen's help, the young man coughed up the seawater in his lungs and regained consciousness. He looked at Eileen pathetically. "It's been a while." The girl hesitated for a moment. "It's been a while." After a moment of searching her memory, Eileen finally remembered the boy's name. "You're Andrew," the young man sighed. "My name is Anthony." He was the one Eileen had sent to the island to gather information. Having narrowly escaped death, his face still held the terror of his ordeal. "I thought I was going to die this time." Eileen looked at Anthony, choked with emotion. She removed the seaweed from his hair. "Don't die." Anthony seized the opportunity. "Then please give me double the hazardous duty pay today. Otherwise, I'll definitely die with grievances and my eyes won't close." This man, he wished he could work 24 hours a day. But the second his beloved was out of his sight, he immediately abandoned his work and chased after the girl. Felix's panic intensified, especially when he saw Eileen talking with someone he didn't recognize. Who is this young man? He wondered. I've never heard that Eileen prefers younger men. Despite his inner turmoil, Felix maintained a calm facade. He thoughtfully inquired after the boy's well-being, asking Eileen if he was ill. Noticing the boy's parched lips, Felix thoughtfully offered his water bottle, subtly showcasing his attentiveness to Eileen. Anthony, not one for pretense, accepted the offering. Adrift at sea for so long, his throat felt like it was filled with smoke. He unscrewed the cap and drained the entire bottle in one long gulp. Eileen felt a pang of guilt. He must have been so thirsty, she thought. I didn't even think of it. Watching Anthony, Felix and Eileen resembled a pair of concerned parents. Eileen smiled and introduced the boy to Felix. This is Andrew, she said. At her words, Anthony choked on the last swallow of water. It's Anthony, he sputtered. Those names aren't even close. How do you keep getting it wrong? Felix, ever observant, noticed Anthony's apparent exhaustion. He offered to carry the grime-covered boy on his back. Anthony, slightly embarrassed, could only manage. Are you an angel? Eileen suddenly remembered that Anthony hadn't been alone at sea. Hope flickering in her eyes, she asked, What about the others? The boy's head drooped. They should still be alive, he said quietly, but we need to rescue them quickly. Felix, too, noticed a strange, mournful sound emanating from the island's interior. The unsettling description caused Eileen to instinctively move closer to Felix, gripping his strong arm. Her closeness brought a blush to Felix's face, and a subtle romantic tension filled the air between them. Only Anthony, rolling his eyes, remained unaffected by the charged atmosphere. I'm practically dying here, and they're flirting right in front of me, he thought with exasperation. The fiery heroine of Blazing Flowers had awakened. She was no longer passively accepting the affections of 3 male leads. Instead, she was taking steps to become powerful in her own right. Upon learning of the dangers inherent in the quest to find the spirits, Chloe didn't flinch. Her gaze was resolute. If I give up now, she declared, I don't know when I'll have another chance. I'd rather struggle for a lifetime than live a life of mediocrity and insignificance. Her words, poetic in their conviction, deeply moved her best friend, Eileen. I had no idea she was so prepared for this, Eileen thought, impressed by Chloe's resolve. That day, they cast aside their hesitation and apprehension. They immediately boarded a boat, setting course for the deserted island where the spirits dwelled. Their objective, to forge a pact with the spirits. Eileen worried about the dangers of the journey and the potential harm to the mercenaries accompanying them. However, the mercenaries were unconcerned. It's truly unexpected for a client to be so kind, one remarked. When mercenaries, if we were afraid of death, how could we complete our missions? They had long accepted the possibility of death. As they discussed the matter, the boat drew closer to the island, the buildings now visible on the shore. The deserted island, unexpectedly, boasted ornate courtyards. Felix pondered the sight. That's definitely not a modern architectural style, he mused. Moreover, the flag fluttering above the buildings bore a symbol representing a bygone era when a different religious faith prevailed. These signs hinted to Eileen, Chloe, and Felix that time on this island flowed differently than in the outside world. Just then, the boat struck a reef. Eileen, standing on the deck, lost her balance. Felix swiftly caught her. "Are you all right?" he asked. Once the immediate danger had passed, Eileen realized how close they were. Close enough to see the shyness in Felix's eyes and the blush on his cheeks. He quickly released her. "Sorry," he mumbled, and the distance between them widened once more. Neither of them would admit their feelings, but in that brief moment of contact, their bodies betrayed them. One flushed crimson, the other with a sparkle in their eyes. Yet in the next instant, they separated, as if fearing that any further proximity would ignite a wildfire. Eileen looked around, trying to understand the sudden jolt. What was that, she wondered. It didn't feel like we hit anything. Could it be the spirit's power? The mage on board noticed their own spirits trembling. It indicated the presence of spirits far more powerful than their own. The mage considered using a transportation spell to send Eileen, Chloe, and Felix directly to the island. But Felix rejected the idea. "There's an unseen force," he said, warping the space. "We can't get through." One of the archers drew an arrow, intending to test the barrier, but an invisible shield snapped the arrow in two. Panic rippled through the crew. This island was proving far more terrifying than any of them had imagined. The mage stared at Felix in astonishment. Everything that had happened had been foreseen by this man. Who is he? He wondered. How could he know so much? Felix, ever modest, simply replied, "I just have an overactive imagination." Eileen turned to the others. "So what do we do now?" As everyone scrambled for a solution, Chloe stepped to the precarious bow of the ship. In the biting sea wind, her hair and skirts billowed around her like blossoms. Terror seized Eileen. She reached out, crying, "Chloe, what are you doing?" In the next instant, with a splash, Chloe plunged into the icy waters. Eileen's outstretched hand hung in the air, a pale, helpless gesture. Before grief could consume her, a whirlpool erupted from the sea, tearing the ship asunder. In that moment of peril, Felix shielded Eileen, pulling her tightly into his embrace.